morning with regards to issues that were coming out of the SOS meeting symposium dealing with public broadcasting and wanting that the issues of digital migration and the analog switch off should receive some attention during this term. I'm not sure if the program currently allows for that, but I did make an undertaking that those matters I would bring to the meeting for consideration. Honorable Elisha and Honorable Singh have their hands up. Maybe let me stop there and take those hands. Honorable Elisha, please do come in.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Mine is short. I just wanted to say I also did write to you on that matter of resolve, and I actually never got a confirmation that you've received my letter. It was almost immediately when the issue was in the public domain. So I just want maybe the Secretariat can check and alert me if they have indeed received the correspondence. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Alicia. My apologies. I did check with the advisors again before the start of the meeting to make sure there was no correspondence I'd left out, but we will definitely ask them to check and acknowledge that. My sincere apologies. Honorable Singh.
Good morning, Chair, to you and to all in the meeting. Chair, unless I've missed it, I haven't seen the issue regarding the removal of the MDDA board member issue on this terms program. Chair, we must bear in mind that the chairperson of the MDDA board wrote to the minister in August 2024. We are now in August 2026, and that matter hasn't even proceeded to start. This committee sat on the 5th of June, and it's almost 2 months that nothing has happened to initiate that inquiry. So I'm seriously concerned that a matter of this importance, which has the potential to destabilize the governance of the MDDA, we don't seem to be taking that seriously as a committee if it's not on this terms program. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Singh. I feel like I had read your mind. In the consultation with the Secretariat, with the advisors that I had just before the meeting, I did ask about the MDDA matter. We keep a record of correspondence and issues that we have not yet responded to or at least actioned. On the MDDA matter, Dr. Medupi had just recently gone back on the transcripts of our last meeting. I think you'll remember there was a discussion in terms of broadening the inquiry, not only into the one board member as per the minister's letter, but looking at all of the MDDA issues. So they have started, our committee staff has started engaging with Parliamentary Legal Services, and I have requested that in the next meeting, they must bring the draft terms of reference for that inquiry, as the Portfolio Committee had taken a decision to institute an inquiry. But also over and above that, there was the issue of the report, because according to the transcript of the last meeting we had on this matter, you had requested that the report that was referred to in the meeting that the department had undertaken must also be brought before the Portfolio Committee, so that as we go through our terms of reference, we are not seeking to duplicate. So maybe just to give an assurance that it is top of mind, and we are going to look at how we then, rejig the program, if you like, to ensure that those matters do not fall within the cracks. But I agree with you. I think it's been a long time coming, but we will prioritize it. Colleagues, then with that being said, I think the proposal on the floor is the adoption of the agenda with the addition. We would have to revise the agenda, but with the addition of 3 items. The one is the issue relating to public affairs, resolve communications. The second issue is the digital migration, the analog switch off, and then the commencement. We'll have to look at form of the MDDA inquiry. I was informed, I may be wrong, that there's a move towards Parliament that a lot of the work that we do in this term is virtual, but something of the nature of the inquiry, which doesn't have to take a month, it can, really be a couple of days, but I think something like that may possibly need to be done physically. Hajira, can you go through the rest of the program as it currently stands while we note those additions, amendments? And
good morning, Chairperson and members. Members, we did receive a letter from Mr. Subrati as well as Ms. Kalishi now, and I have forwarded to the content advisors to have a look at it. Apart from that, we'll just look at what we have in front of us, noting that there will be changes made. For the term, obviously, is 4 August to 28th of August, and our meeting today is before us with the Q3 and Q4 apologies, with the Q3 and Q4 performance reports of ZADNA, FPB, NEMISA, and ICASA. On Friday, members, we will continue with the CETA training on the government tracking tool, which will be a practical process, and there will be no documentation for that meeting. On Tuesday, the 11th, it was intended that we have a briefing by ICASA on an update on the draft regulations on rapid deployment, local government elections regulations, update on data expiry. And further to that, we'll have a briefing by the SABC and Centec on their proposals for Parliament TV, which was standing from last term coming forward, and also a briefing by the SABC on the state of readiness around the election coverage. On the Friday, the 11th of August, there would be a presentation by the department on the status of the independent investigation of NEMISA and the disciplinary outcomes and governance challenges of ZADNA. That was also on the item of the last term. And then we'll also have to consider and adopt our oversight report to Limpopo and the consideration and adoption of the Netflix report, which was also brought forward. And then on Tuesday, the 18th of August, we have Parliament orientation on SAPO transition from business rescue to sustainable governance. The same another briefing by SAPO on partnerships, focusing on strategic partnerships, their status, developmental value, and related policy support, and also just be given an update on the ECA bill roadmap. On Wednesday, a special application will be made for a webinar on coordinated universal access financing and alignment between Universal Service and Access Fund and the Access Fund, led by GMSA and supported by ICASA. And on the Friday, we'll then adopt the 3rd and 4th quarter report. And then also consider a P20 Youth Parliament report that was referred to us in the ATC 3 December. And further to that, just have an introduction to TikTok's community guidelines on content moderation enforcement, how TikTok supports election integrity, combating misinformation, and the working with government. Then on the 25th of August, members will have a briefing by the department on the implementation of the district development model across the 53 districts, with a focus more on communications and digital technology delivery, as well as a follow-up session on universal service obligations, including spectral commitments, USAF enforcement and accountability, and then a briefing by the department supported by the PSC, Public Service Commission, on its report on the investigation of governance at CETA. Our last meeting would be a joint briefing with the Portfolio Committee on Science and Technology and its relevant entity on the establishment and status of a draft national satellite communication strategy. Thank you, members.
thank you very much, Hajira. So, honorable members, that is the proposed agenda with the additions that we discussed. May I have a mover for the adoption of the agenda? Honorable Subrati, your hand is up, and you'll be followed by Honorable Botlani.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Let me greet yourself and the Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, and all on the call. Chairperson, before I move for the adoption of the agenda, let me take this opportunity on behalf of myself and colleagues present to wish yourself and congratulate yourself. Congratulations from all of us, Chairperson, on earning your Master of Arts in Development Studies with distinction. And your accomplishment indeed is a beacon of inspiration to our people. Pahama, Chairperson, Pahama, congratulations to you. Chairperson, thank you also then for acknowledging the correspondence that I would have sent and other honorable members would have sent, particularly surrounding the resolved communications. And my addition was the matter surrounding the broadcasting digital migration, which arose as a result of the summit that 4 honorable members had attended. And thank you. I think with those additions that have been discussed at this meeting, Chairperson, I move for the adoption of the agenda. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Subrati. Honorable Botlani.
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning, colleagues. Chair, let me also join Honorable Subrati in congratulating you. It's a great achievement, which takes a lot of dedication and a lot of hard work. So well done, Chair. We are really inspired. Chair, I did ask on the group about the planning for the ICASA interviews. I know they would not fall squarely on the program of the portfolio committee, but it would help us to know where we are going to slot that in relation to this existing program. I did understand that on that morning that I asked Mr. Ngoma was in the other portfolio committee, so there was no answer. Is there any way that we can get some understanding of how we are going to balance this program with the ICASA interviews? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Botlani. And once that question is answered, you second the adoption of the program.
Indeed, Chairperson, I so second.
Thank you so much. Honorable Botlani, and I think we're going to have to take this matter up with the leadership of the committee section. I do think that Mr. Ngoma is currently otherwise engaged. He's working on the Section 89 committee. I think he's also on another ad hoc committee. So some things have fallen through the cracks, but the rest of the staff is here. There was a draft program that was developed for the ICASA interviews. And I think the sooner we start and we put aside maybe 3 days for the purposes of that, we should be able to slot it in. Hajira, do you have any tentative dates? Because the last time we met, we were putting the names out for public comment. I know it doesn't belong in this meeting because it's a subcommittee issue, but do we have any update on the ICASA process just so that we can answer Honorable Botlani on that matter before we move it to the correct platform?
Good morning, members. I did try to speak to Mr. Ngoma this morning on the matter. His note to me is that we just need to find a slot for interviews. Otherwise, the HR and SSA processes have been completed. So it's for the committee to just find a slot. We don't have a slot. Thank you.
All right, maybe we will then schedule a meeting of the subcommittee to get that report and finalize that matter if possible. I think we need to do that early next week and get it out of the way. All right. Thank you, colleagues. The agenda has been adopted, but I do want to propose that we move the issue of the adoption of the minutes to after the presentations. I would like at this point maybe to firstly just thank you so much for your congratulations and well wishes. I was thinking, how are we talking about this again? And then I remembered that it was only a few of the members, well, not a few, not all members had been able to attend the visit that we had to MTN last week. I think it will be important, Mr. Olu, that we do bring a report to the committee about that particular engagement with MTN South Africa in specifically. But thank you very much, colleagues, for your well wishes. Let me now welcome the Minister and the Deputy Minister, perhaps to introduce the reports that we are looking at. We have come to the end of T20. 25-26, yes, and then we will then start in the new term on the 1st and 2nd to ensure that by the time we get to the end of term, at least we would have moved between Q1, Q2, if possible, even Q3 reports. Minister, you are welcome. It's lovely to have you in the meeting. Could I hand over to
I've lost the chair.
the chair is very much here, Minister.
Oh.
You are silent. You look like you've had a very difficult couple of months.
I was just not hearing your last part of the audio, Chair. Thanks very much, Chair, and congratulations for your graduation on behalf of everyone in the department. From the department, we are also joined by the Deputy Minister and the DG. The entities are represented by their chairpersons and the senior management there. I think in the interest of time on my end, I won't go through all the individual names. They will do so themselves when the parts of their presentations come. Just a few remarks in terms of a summary of the Q3 and 4 report for the 2025-26 financial year. Just starting with ICASA. In terms of performance from both Q3 and Q4, there's been an average performance of over 80% in terms of meeting the targets. In those 2 quarters, the regulator collected approximately 2.1 billion in terms of regulatory revenue during the reporting period, and they'll be able to explain some of the other key achievements, including the review of the digital migration regulations and also the completion of the community sound broadcasting licensing progress. They will also highlight some of the key, missed targets, which will then moving into the next financial year, which is the one that we are currently in, some of which have been resolved in there. Moving into the FPB, which deserves credit for their performance in Q3, in particular in Q4, given that it represents an improvement from the Q3 performance, leading to 100% in the 4th quarter. The key achievements there also speak to finalization, for instance, on the improved online content monitoring capability and the elimination of the child sexual abuse material assessment, which had been in backlogs for some time. As members know, the term of the current council had lapsed, and we had done an extension while we are finalizing the process of the appointment of the new council. In terms of the departmental internal processes on that aspect, we are done. The process is currently now going to be going through the cabinet committee process and ultimately in cabinet, and we are hoping that in the forthcoming cabinet cycle that would have been finalized. With regards to ZADNA, in terms of its performance in Q3, it represented 100% of the targets for Q3. However, there was a regression to 90% in Q4, which they will then be able to speak about. I think one of the persistent areas of concern relates to the underperformance with regards to the implementation of digital platforms for schools and the conclusion of their strategic partnerships, which is an issue that has been ongoing for some time. They will also provide an update with regards to the ongoing litigation matter with the former CEO. And then moving to NEMISA, Chair, which also did well with regards to its key targets for those two successive periods, including the rollout of the digital literacy programs, the expansion of digital entrepreneurship initiatives. And I think here it's important to just update the committee in terms of recent developments outside of the reporting cycle, which prominently relates to the tenure of the former CEO, whose tenure had come to a lapse. The chair will be able to update the committee because that is a major development with regards to the roadmap for filling that position permanently. Chair, I would leave my introductory remarks at that level so that the entities have sufficient time to be able to provide in-depth presentations on the performance of the entities for those successive periods. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. I think quite some insights in that presentation that we look forward to interrogating and engaging. Let me then welcome ICASA and to indicate to all entities that you have a maximum of 20 minutes for your presentations. We will take all the presentations and then we will then engage with them afterwards. I'm not sure, is the Chair of Council here, Mr. Ramusi?
Yeah. So, thank you very much. Good morning. Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members, Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, my ICASA colleagues, and all those that are in attendance. And once more, Chair, let me convey our congratulatory message on behalf of ICASA to the attainment of your further qualification in life, and congratulations to that. Chair and honorable members, I'm here to present our Q3 and Q4 of the financial year end of 2025 and 2026. In my delegation, I've got Mr. Siyanda Nkamise, who will be representing our CEO. She's not well, Ms. Tsiamo Maluleka Ditsemelo. And I'll be joined by Moresi Mweketsa, who's the acting CFO. And we do have my other councillors and colleagues on call in terms of engagement later. Chair and honorable members, I think perhaps just to give just a little bit of background in terms of our last financial year plan, just to remind members, you may have noticed from our plan that as an authority, in the main, our last year plan, when it came to regulatory interventions, we primarily focused in developing a foundation, which to a large extent will be seeing the implementation of our regulatory interventions in our current financial year. Just to give an overview, the main area of focus, Chair and honorable members, we noted that in South Africa, one of our immediate challenge here is acquisition of monitoring tools, especially those that will support the regulator in ensuring that as and when we report to yourself, the issue of quality of experience, quality of service, and satellite operations becomes areas that we need to give South African comfort that we are ensuring that we safeguard the sovereignty of this country. We have been engaging and we engage with our security cluster just to make sure that as and when we hear of new developments in our country, as a regulator, we can give you comfort that we do have those tools to proactively monitor any illegal operations in South Africa. So that was one of our foundation for the past year. Again, we focused in finalizing the National Radio Frequency Band Plan. Obviously, this becomes a menu document which is meant to open up investment opportunities for South Africans and anyone who's got an appetite to come into South Africa. And in the main, you may have even seen just towards the end of our financial year, we have made available what we may call dynamic spectrum, which then empowers and brings some transformation for our SMMEs, including our current licensed, licensees, so that The expansion of our networks in our underserved areas is visible. And in the main, it's just to make sure that we continue to bring all South Africans into the mainstream, not only in telecommunication, but in broadcasting. The minister did indicate, as a foundation, we have prepared our communities by availing a process which will see communities owning again community broadcasting licenses. We've laid that foundation in our past year. And lastly is the issue of the post office. You might have noted that the post office, in terms of ensuring that they operate within a confined space, we prepared the renewal of their license. And I must say to the chair and honorable members, this is one project that, as an authority, this will be the first time ever the authority renews a license for a post office in South Africa, because this was never done in the past. And lastly, as a foundation on regulatory intervention, is the satellite licensing framework. As you may have noted that for the past couple of years, we've had interesting requests from all over the world where South Africa has been identified as a destination for new provision of services, including satellites. So we made it sure that even prior to that, let's make sure that we lay the foundation for those that have got an interest in that process. In relation to our operational excellence, you may have realized as well, we've had some challenges, Chair and honorable members, in relation to not achieving some of our targets. And mainly, I think my colleague will explain in terms of skill set and the tools that we need in terms of ensuring that we've got appropriate enterprise platforms that will support our operations within the organization. And in the main, it has been the issue around how to bring in the youth, women, persons with disabilities into our mainstreams. We have noted that, attracting all those three sectors, it requires partnerships. And in our last financial year, we've already made strides to engage with other relevant departments so that even in our supply chain, we are not seen to not to be empowering the youth, women, persons with disability. So in this current year, we'll be embarking on outreach program so that we engage communities in all the 9 provinces, including our rural communities. And finally, just before I hand over, Chair members, on the issue of our finances and affordability, there are areas, obviously, as an institution, we're still not happy. If you look at our wage bill, it's an area of concern for us, obviously, as council, supported by management, but we've got interventions that we will share with you on how we are planning to reduce, and even the issue of the deficit that we reported. And lastly, it's how then our preparation towards finalizing our business case on raising additional capital. We've already started engaging last year with National Treasury, with the Department of Communication and Digital Technologies on how best we can recoin our mandate so that even from what the minister indicated, we collect 2.2 billion, but in terms of our operations, the monies that we're supposed to run this organization, Chair and members, we're still handicapped in terms of ensuring that we address our regulatory mandate. And finally is the issue of stakeholder engagement. We have done very well last financial year in bringing new other investors into our stable. We have realized, Chair and members, that in the journey of renewing licenses, we needed to start to understand why all the licenses that were issued in the past 25 years are not all active. And to that, we've now started to engage the financial institutions, and we've already engaged just to understand what could be the challenge when it comes to raising of capital for SMMEs, rural communities that have got an appetite in providing services in telecoms, broadcasting, and engaging in the postal services. So that's in the main, but the unpacking of that, allow me, Chair and honorable members, then to hand over to Sianda, who will then unpack what I've shared with you at that high level. And thank you very much once again for the opportunity. Mr. Sianda, if I can hand over to you. Thank you very much, Chair and members. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson of the committee, to the honorable members, the Minister, the Deputy Minister, and all the members, all the leadership from the respective institutions, the ICASA chair, ICASA councillors, ICASA CEO, and all members in the House. Chair, we also want to pass our congratulatory message on your achievement this morning before we can start the presentation. And thank you to the ICASA chair for such a comprehensive presentation initially, because part and parcel of what we are going to be focusing on touches precisely on the items that he has touched. And in a large extent, we will take then the presentation as read, Chair, through you. Can we move to slide 5, Nico? Number 5. Thank you. Chair, on our side, these are the outcomes we felt we needed to highlight, that the authority is contributing towards the midterm development plan 24 to 29, specifically strategic priority number 1 and strategic priority number 2. And in there, we're talking about the broadband services that are increased, social cohesion and national building, consumer rights protected, which is core of what we do as ICASA. There's the competition in the ICT sector promoted, and the skills for the economy that are produced. Those are the major priorities that we are focusing on as ICASA, Chair. And so we wanted to just align with that midterm development plan. Next slide, Nico. In the 25-26 financial year, specifically Q3 and Q4, the snapshot as it exists, Chair, this is what we focused on. We looked at the regulatory interventions that had impact on major contributions towards those strategic outcomes that I've already outlined. And one of those that we felt needed to be looked into was the National Radio Frequency Band Plan. We needed to update that after the World Radio Communications Conference. There's also then the Radio Frequency Migration Plan, as the Minister initially alluded to. We are looking at the IMT roadmap that is implemented, a framework for dynamic spectrum access and opportunity spectrum management, which is phase 2. You would remember, Chair, that phase 1, we've already done the TV white space. Phase 2 then is looking at exploiting the other available frequency bands for more access to broadband spectrum. There's also then the process to license community sound broadcasting services in the country. We've been going around the country doing workshops around this initiative. The process to assign broadband spectrum completed. This is in line with the 2022 auction. We're continuing now with that process, and it's been presented before. We are progressing, Chair, I might say, in terms of going to start the process to ensure that we assign that broadband spectrum. There's also the elections that are coming, and so we looked at the elections monitoring plan, and we also focused on the process to develop a satellite regulatory framework. These are in line with what the chairperson of ICASA has already presented, making sure that there's interest, investment that comes from all these LEOs and MEOs that we've been hearing about in the country. Next slide, Nico. So this is the outlook of the Q3 and the Q4 performance. Next slide, Nico. And I will just focus on slide 10, which gives a better picture, wherein if you look at Q3, you would note, Chair, that there's a number of achievements that we made. However, we must admit that for finance, we fell short, where we set at 55.5%. Whereas in Q4, we regressed furthermore. We went to 33%, and we also had a further challenge moving from Q3 to Q4, which was the engineering and technology program, which dropped to 83%, and the meat to that will be provided in the following slides. Next slide, Nico. We can pass this one. This is a synopsis, Chair, of where we fell short. And in a nutshell, we're coming up and saying we could have done better. But for one reason or the other, these are the ones that we fell short in terms of achievement. We're talking about the percentage of valid invoices paid within 30 working days. This has been a headache, and I note that in the previous presentations we've made before the committee, it's always been presented. However, here, Chair, the more than anything else, this was as a result of an inconsistency within our APP, and that is why then we then say there is a feeling that we've met the target. However, when one looks at the TIDs that are contained in that APP, one had to concede that we could have crafted that APP better to align the targets with the ones that we had prescribed in the APP. And so that inconsistency is the one that then resulted in us having to concede to not meeting that target. It is sort of an own goal that we are looking into going forward, Chair, and that is why we are saying quality assurance, making sure that there's internal audit reviews and the AG review that is going to be done so that mistakes such as the one that was done here do not exist going forward. Next slide, Nico. The percentage of consequence management actions taken, Chair, here we fell short again. We did not achieve this target, and this is largely due to resource constraints. At a very critical stage of this initiative, Chair, one of the members that was instrumental in the investigations unfortunately left the employ of the authority, which then resulted in a backlog of those investigations that were being undertaken. But rest assured, Chair, we are in the final stages of the appointment of a new member who's going to come in and add more numbers and capacity in ensuring that we meet this KPA. And that is what we strive to do in the coming years. As Chair of ICASA has presented, Chair, the percentage of women-owned companies benefiting from procurement, and I will club this, Chair, with Q3 and Q4. It's one of the headaches and one of the major things that we've made a priority on our side to make sure that we address it. However, we fell short when it came to Q3 and in Q4. In the sense that whatever we've been putting out, we've not necessarily been getting the numbers that we expected. We've since engaged the National Treasury to ensure that at least we get the strategies that can assist us in providing ways that we can address issues that relate to how we can attract women and youth going forward. There's also the finalization of this strategic sourcing plan that we are working on. And as Chair of ICASA has alluded, we are also going to be crisscrossing the country, trying to make sure that ICASA is known and that women and youth can participate in our initiatives going forward, Chair. Next slide, Nico. And this is Q4, Chair, where we're talking about the reduction of irregular expenditure. There's a bulk of outstanding cases, Chair, that we speak about that have already been handed over to National Treasury. These ones are for condonation, and we accept that we could have done better, where we sit at 91%. However, we've then since handed to National Treasury for condonation, and we are still awaiting feedback. But overall, Chair, as we stipulate in this slide, the authority was able to reduce the irregular expenditure from that 14.1 to about 1.3 million in the current year, which was the 25-26 year, Chair. And so there's improvement and focus that is put on this one. And perhaps once that condonation or the decision by the National Treasury comes back, it will provide us with more information as well as to how best we can improve our processes. Next slide. The percentage of reduction in fruitless and wasteful expenditure, Chair, we also fell short here. This is largely due to the missed flights. When you delve deep into it, we talk about the flexibility, the collaboration with the travel agency in terms of how they structure those flight tickets or the bookings rather, in line with who we are as the authority. Should there be other initiatives that are happening and one cannot then embark or take that flight as envisaged, can we make sure that we change the flight to a later date, or can we make sure that it is held and not then flagged as a UIFF. Those are some of the things that we are striving to ensure that we address in alignment with the travel agency that we have. We work in different ways and in different divisions, Chair. We experience that one might be stuck in Cape Town and not be able to come back because of extended challenges that they have to, or activities that they have to attend to in those instances. But the inflexibility that we've been having with the travel agency there has caused some of these challenges. We've since picked that up. And so we're working towards addressing those, Chair. But in cases where then indeed the fault and the analysis came to the effect that it was negligence, consequence management has been implemented and ensured that such actions are addressed going forward. However, we also must stipulate that that flexibility that we need from our travel agency needs to be addressed. Next slide, Nico. The reduction of material misstatements in the financial statement, Chair, there were 5 material misstatements identified. And an audit action plan that we are working on, Chair, is to ensure that at least we are on top of this one and that we don't have any further challenges when it comes to misstatements going forward. This is a carryover that we usually experience from the 23-24, and then AG comes or the audit comes and it still then juxtaposes and says, you still must account for what had happened in the previous financial year, which then raises some of these challenges, Chair, that we need to address. But of late, what we have done is to say, perhaps we need to restructure the finance department, critically look at the resources that we have at finance and see if they can be better placed to ensure that they close some of these loopholes. We can't consistently be carrying over the sins of the previous financial year to the current financial year. That structure to date, Chair, has been approved. And what we need to do currently is to ensure that the positions that are vacant at finance are filled such that the people that are supposed to then be in control of such observations and controls are in place and can address these matters going forward. Thank you, Chair. Nico? This is the big one, Chair, that we've always been coming before the committee and talking about addressing, which is the valid invoices paid within 30 working days. And I think on top as well, Chair, I have already presented that in as much as we strive to ensure that we address this KPA on our side, where we fell short was the alignment of the APP document appropriately. There's the TID section, and then there's the other top section, which talks to the actual targets. That inconsistency has really created the problem wherein whatever we could have done and the work that we've put in place throughout the year came across that we haven't met the target. And so what we need to do going forward here, Chair, is to make sure that whatever is contained in our APP document is consistent right through the document. You can't have a section of the document talking to you achieving a 90%, and in the TIDs you're talking about achieving 100%. That misalignment then, Chair, is non-negotiable, and it has resulted in the problem that we are having as the authority today. But we want to make the assertion to the committee today that in each quarter that we were chasing, whether it was an 80% target as seen from the Q3 target, we had met those targets and in any case have gone above the actual percentage that was put. However, when we then went down to the actual TIDs, which is the descriptors, that is when then we had to concede that perhaps those targets were misaligned what we had aimed for ourselves. And like I said, Chair, earlier on, this was the own goal that we scored for ourselves. And going forward, it is going to be rectified. Next slide, Nico. As presented with the Q3 target, Chair, and I would club this with the youth as well, percentage of women and youth benefiting from the procurement of goods on behalf of the authority. In Q4, Chair, we pushed as much as we can to have a high number of RFQ awards. to companies that are owned by women. However, when one clubs the overall award and bidding prospect, we then realize that we're still falling short. Yes, the numbers did increase on the RFQ side, but when it comes to the tender side, the awards were less in that regard. And this is what then resulted in us not meeting that target. But as chair of the authority has presented before, this is something
Sorry,
that we
Mrs. Ngamisa, you are concluding, right? Because you've run out of time. Please move towards
noted, Chair. I will move towards conclusion. Nico, let's move. Nico? Perhaps, Nico, let's jump straight to the finance sections, because the one for rapid deployment was already presented by the chair of the authority. That's one of the targets, Chair, that we didn't meet. But in Q2 now, the authority recently just conducted hearings, and it is a complex regulation that we are trying to develop on our side, Chair, and it includes a multiple stakeholders, the districts, the municipalities, and the likes. And so in respect of those institutions, we had to make sure that we put out a comprehensive document, but in doing so, it had then cost us that target during the Q4 target, Chair. I'll hand over to Ms. Resi for her to continue with the financial section.
Is Ms. on the platform so far?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for that. Good morning, Chair, honorable members, Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, and the leadership of all the entities in the department, Chairperson of ICASA, councillors of ICASA, and the CEO of ICASA, and the colleagues that are in the call. Chairperson, I'll be taking you through the financial performance of Q3 and 4. Next slide, please. The good news, Chairperson, is that we have collected 2.1 billion for the country, and this is from Spectrum, which contributed the majority of the contribution, which amounted to 1.5 billion, followed by CES and ECNS, which contributed 907 million, and then broadcasting 106 million, and the unit that contributed the least was Postal, which contributed 4.5 million. Chairperson, none of this belongs to ICASA. All of it was paid to the Department of Communications within 30 days of receiving it. Next slide, please. We are funded through the grants, and we have received a grant amounting to 588 million. In addition to this, we are investing additional cash that we have, Chair, which we budgeted to be 62 million. However, what actually happened in the years that we only received 47 million. This is due to maybe less investments that was made, and also lower interest that we have received during the current year. When we look at our expenditure, Chairperson, okay, we are still on the previous slide. Apologies for that. Yes, so we are still in a surplus position because we have received 635 million and we have only spent 549. So we are in a surplus position amounting to 173 million. Next slide. So here we're just summarizing the income that I have just mentioned. We can just skip to the next slide. Our funding is divided amongst the 5 programs that amounted to 738 million, and of all of that, Chairperson, we only spent 549 million, which indicates an underspending of 25%. We can move on to the next slide. We are in a net asset positive position, Chairperson, whereby our asset amounted to the total of 749 million. and our liabilities only amounted to 106 million, indicating that we're in a positive position, and our net worth as at the year end amounted to 642 million. We can move on to the next slide. Even our cash, chairperson and members, it was positive. It amounted to 647 million, which is good for the state. We can move on to the next slide. Okay, so these are the key legislation matters. Would you be taking that? Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Or was
Thank you,
that?
Chair,
Thank you,
and
saying you are
apologies
finished.
Okay. Apologies, Chair, to just come in like that. I think on my side, I should have presented this slide that talks to the litigation matters that came before the authority, and it was in Q3 where we had an application. In fact, CellSef made an application for the transfer of control in Cell C's ECS, ECNS licenses to be reviewed and set aside. And this matter, Chair, is before the court as we speak. And so there's nothing else in Q4. This is the only one that we have before us currently. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much to the chairperson of ICASA and the leadership of the organization. I want to call Film and Publication Board to present next and request that they please don't follow the example of ICASA. They may be the regulator, but they've set a bad example in terms of time. So could I ask FPB, I'm not sure who's leading us in the presentation, but you are welcome to please do proceed.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Certainly we will make up time for the committee. The team will be quick at it.
Chairperson, sorry, before you proceed, Chairperson, you are welcomed. There's an absolute problem that every time before you present, we always don't know who's leading. So I want to apologize for that and let you know that we truly appreciate you being here. You may proceed, madam.
Oh, okay. Okay. Greetings. Yeah, colleagues, my name is Zamam Kosi, the chairperson of Film and Publication Board. We are delighted that we will be presenting the Q3 and Q4 reports. And although, yes, a lot has happened post the time in question, some of it the minister has alluded to it. And we're happy to report that most of it is positive. So there may be reds that are going to be reported, but since then there's been significant improvement, such as there's now 100% performance and clean audits and things like that post the reporting period. Just a bit of context on some of the items that showed red, which is which relates to the core of our work, which is the assessment of child sexual abuse material. Yes, we made up and ultimately did achieve 100%, but it is an area that remains challenging for us as an organization, primarily because of challenges with the technology to enable us to do that work, as well as the increase in the volume. And most recently, it is even affecting and impact the safety of some of our staff members who do that work and ultimately have the responsibility of appearing in courts and giving evidence. And most recently, their safety, we have concerns, but we are looking into that because it may have been compromised. But we were challenged by the minister in the last chairperson's forum to work closely with CETA on coming up with tech solutions for this area. And it is something that we as the council have implored management to look into. On the financial side, there are line items which the CFO will take the meeting through that are either below or above budget, and a bit of context into that, starting with the one that is highly above budget, which is the legal costs. Just to say that it is largely out of our control, and it relates mostly to one individual, the former CEO, who has been taking the organization through various litigation, which we have a responsibility to then defend, and to a certain extent it has even extended to him instituting action even against executives and council members and various platforms. So we are looking very closely in trying to find a way to resolve that, but it has had a significant impact in our legal costs. On the positive side, one of the line items that is below budget is the line item that relates to council costs. Happy to say that it is below budget because we have been managing the council-related costs, the number of meetings very closely, but also the work of the enforcement committee, which falls under that line item, has also not been to the highest extent as yet, even though that will show differently going forward. And lastly, before I hand over to the acting CEO, Advocate Makhosazana Lindhorst, just to say that yes, it is unfortunate that we have acting yet again at CEO level at the organization. But happy to report that it is not out of our own doing, but instead it is a positive for the talent in South Africa, because the former CEO that we had most recently appointed got headhunted into an international organization, which we were very proud to let him go and represent South Africa in that organization. But we are working very hard in the recruitment process. We are hoping in the next few days we will be submitting a concurrence request to the minister, and trusting that it will ultimately make its way through the parliamentary channels. So on that note, I would like to hand over to the acting CEO, Advocate Lindhorst, who will present together with the CFO. Thank you very much. Acting CEO, respecting the time, please, as it has been requested, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chairperson, the Minister, the Deputy Minister. All protocol observed. You can move to the next slide. So as the FPB, we continue to ensure that children are protected from harmful content, and that is the work that we've been doing for the 2 quarters. You can move to the next slide. The next slide. In terms of our priorities, we endeavor to be an effective regulator of content that empowers and protects the public. So we contribute to the government priorities thereof, driving inclusive growth and job creation through our online content classification regulation, and ensuring that there is efficient compliance monitoring and enforcement. And we continue to contribute to the reduction of poverty and tackle high cost of living through our improved education and awareness initiative. We continue to build a capable and ethical and developmental state through ensuring that we are running an organization that is digitally driven, ensure financial sustainable organization. You can move to the next slide. So in terms of the performance for the 2 quarters, we have seen an increase in terms of our performance. In Q3, we've achieved 78%, and it's 2 targets that were not achieved, and the chairperson has actually alluded to those targets. However, in terms of ensuring that we improve our efficiency, so we have seen an increase in Q4, and we continue to maintain the 100% achievement as an organization. Next slide. So in terms of the indicators, we are required to at least ensure that we implement 100% of the online safety education and awareness plan. So this is the plan where we go across the country, educating members of the public about issues of online safety and the dangers of social media. So in terms of the plan, we have a lot of activities that we are required to implement. We were able to achieve 70% of that plan. However, we have devised a mechanism to ensure that we are achieving. Hence, you will see that in Q4, it was achieved. In terms of the self-generated revenue, we have set a target of generating at least 15%. So this is a revenue that we receive from our regulatory fees, the fees that we charge distributors who are distributing in the Republic, both those who are distributing films and games physically, and also those who are the commercial online distributors. So this is an area where we are able to generate revenue, including those who are illegal. So they have to pay for the cost of non-compliance. So we have matters that would have taken to the enforcement committee, and the Act empowers us and specifically the enforcement committee to actually issue fines. Next slide. So these are the targets that were achieved in this quarter. We have to implement at least 35% of our AR strategy, and the IT team achieve those targets. And another one, our role is that of ensuring that distributors who are distributing content, when they submit their content for classification, we have to ensure that it is done timeously. And the service standard that we have set is that of ensuring that we are classifying within 7 working days. And that target has been achieved to ensure that they are able to distribute their content without any a backlog that is being created by us as a regulator. So this target has been achieved. Whilst we have devised the core regulatory model where we have those who are self-classifying, we still have that responsibility to just sample and do quality assurance to ensure that the classification that they are doing is in line with the Act and also the classification guidelines. So the team continues to do quality assurance and audit those titles that would have been classified by commercial online distributors, and this target has been achieved. The chairperson alluded in detail on the system where we are unable to achieve the target due to the number of the volume that we've received, but also our child protection practitioners for that particular quarter had to attend the court cases, which in a way also contributed to the target not being achieved. The next slide. We continue to do research to inform our regulatory decisions. The research team focus on the research to just determine the impact of artificial intelligence in generating and distributing harmful content. So that was the research for the quarter, and that work was achieved. On registration and licensing, for one to distribute in the Republic, you have to be registered with the Freedom and Publication Board, and we have processed 100% of all the applications that we have received. Again, the timeline that we set, it's that of 5 working days, and that has been achieved by the team. We also have the responsibility to then monitor compliance once you are registered with the board. And the team have a plan, a regulatory compliance plan that we set, and that plan was also achieved. So we have inspected registered distributors, and that has been achieved. The important area where we have seen a great improvement from the organization, this is one of the extended mandate that we were given by the amended Act, where we're required to take enforcement action unidentified or reported non-compliant distributors. So for this end of the year, when you look at Q4, between the quarters up to Q4, we have actually referred a total of about
Next slide
49.
reflect the focus areas that we are looking at. That's the procurement of our payment.
Chair, I'm being disrupted. So on the enforcement action, about 49 matters were referred to the enforcement committee, and we are seeing a decision being issued by the committee where non-compliant distributors, fines are being imposed for their non-compliance. The next slide. Next slide.
Please be
The
mindful
other-
of time, Acting
Yeah,
CEO.
yeah.
Please be mindful of time. Yeah.
Then the other area, Chair, is around the self-generated revenue. So we were able to achieve 16% of self-generated revenue. I will allow the CFO to just quickly take the committee through the financial report. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning. All protocols observed. I think I will talk more to the Q4 performance because there isn't much difference to Q3 and Q4 performance. While you're moving to the Q4 performance, I'll just touch to the fact that by end of Q3, we had spent 70% of the budget that was allocated, the budget of 126 million. And we had collected the revenue also of 118 by a budget of 95 million, which is amount to 75% of what we had budgeted for in Q3. I'll talk to the reasons when I talk to the Q4 numbers. If you can go to the Q4 information. Next slide. Next. Yeah. Next slide. Next slide. So this slide just gives a preview of how we collected the revenue for Q4, which is cumulative for the whole year. And on the classification fee, which is the biggest contributor on regulation fee, we have over collected. We had budgeted to collect 1.4 million, but we ended up collecting 20% more. Which the reason was that the number of material that was submitted to FPB to be classified contributed on that over collection. And the acting CEO spoke about the
Sazu. Manje une-kitchen yakho manje. Une-kitchen. Une-kitchen manje. Where's the breakfast? Akunekudla la. Ayabhora le nto.
Honorable Chabeleng, please mute.
So the distributors are required to register with Film and Publication Board, and that process also results in generating revenue. And for those that are already on our books, they have an option to renew their licenses annually. If you renew within 30 days of your license your registration expiring, then you get a discount. But we do budget for the two lines. And in registration, we see that even those that are registered do not renew on time, and as a result, we end up collecting more on registration and under collecting on renewal. So you will see the under collection there of 61%, but we have over collected on the registration fee. We had also budgeted the online fee, online license fees. This is for those who self-classify. And we also over collected by 3% on that line item. And the reason why we under collected on the interest is that in the first quarter of the year, we delayed in investing the grant that we received and also the decrease in the tax rate that had an impact on that. Next slide. So with regards to expenditure, we actually ended the year with an expenditure of 118 million, which is below what we had budgeted, which is 124 million. And that resulted in an underspend of 6 million. But this mainly was due to the cost containment measures that we implemented. And for the rest of the year, we have been trying to enforce those cost containment measures because year in, year out, we've been saying we don't have enough budget, but we try to also address that internally. There are also areas that are under spending that resulted in that amount that we recorded. Next slide. So I think on this slide is just to reflect the areas that we have underspent and the areas that we've overspent. And all in all, we reflected a surplus of 10 million for the year, which is a 360 turnaround, because last year we reported a deficit of 6.9 million at the end of quarter four. Next slide. And with regards to the reasons for over on underspending on the personal expenditure, the reason for underspend was as a result of vacant positions. We are currently undergoing the OD process, and as a result, we're only filling critical positions and the rest on acting basis. And we've also overspent on legal fees. The reason for this is that we have online cases that are going and new cases that are coming that we had not budgeted for, and all the cases relates to the HR related matter that the chairperson referred to. We did prepare a cost containment strategy specific for the legal fees, but the strategy only works with the cases that are already on board and are linked to our day-to-day activities. So the new cases that keeps on coming, we still find ourselves exposed in this area. And the underspend on the council remuneration, the chairperson has already alluded to the reasons. Next slide. The overspend on audit fee was mainly the timing difference on the amount that was budgeted and the amount that we received from the AG, and they cited that they have to increase the amount. They can't reduce the amount because they must make sure that our audit team is properly constituted. And we also had an overspend on water and electricity as a result of the municipal increases. We did record an underspend on ICT expenses because of the timing of the projects that we are implementing. Those projects are being implemented in the current financial year. And we also recognize a saving on office rental, and this is mainly because we have moved our regional offices, Cape Town and Durban, to SABC premises, which came in cheaper, and we had budgeted a higher amount based on the rental that we were paying in the previous financial year. And we also had plans to procure accommodation for head office, which is a process that has not been finalized. Next slide. This slide just talks to the financial position of the organization, where we're seeing our finances being stable. Our retained accumulated surplus is growing and is supported by cash, but we have in plans to use this surplus to cover areas where we have been exposed in terms of not having sufficient funds. But we are in a good position. We are able to pay our liabilities and still be able to continue operating for the next 12 months. Next slide. And this slide just talks to our compliance to paying suppliers within 30 days. And for the rest of the year, we have been able to pay all the invoices within 30 days, unless there's a dispute. And for the quarter four, we paid the invoices within a period at an average number of days, which is 6 days. And I think this is the last slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson of the committee. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Board Chairperson. Let me also thank the leadership of the FPB for that presentation. I had proposed, and I think we must stick to it, that we just run through all of the presentations so we are done and have sufficient time for discussions. The next presentation we should be taking is from ZADNA. I think the board chairperson, Ms. Balisa, is here, as well as the acting CEO. Can I check, Mr. Gosli, are you here leading the delegation from FPB?
Good morning, Chairperson. I don't know whether were you asking someone else.
Sorry, man, from ZADNA, It's been a long morning. It was you. Please do continue.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning once again, Chairperson, committee members, the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the DG, chairpersons on the line, and everyone else on the platform. Good morning. I am Balisa Lekoze, the chairperson of the South African Domain Name Authority. I am joined by the acting CEO, Advocate Lerato Seema, Mr. Harris Nkanyani, who's the ACT chairperson, and Mr. Vuyo Sibulawa from our finance department. As we're looking at the third and fourth quarter of the last financial year, in the third quarter, I think the minister did allude to this, that we were able to achieve 100% of all the targets that our achieved our targets. And then for the fourth quarter, out of 21, we achieved 19. Missing 2 targets, meaning that we only achieved 90% of what we had set out to achieve. The acting CEO will get into details of why these 2 targets were missed. Also, I think what's important also to raise here is that as ZADNA, we continue to be a going concern, but we are under immense financial constraints. We have, however, have a containment strategy in place to ensure that we continue to go afloat, meaning that we had to cut back on some of the activities that we had intended to do for the third and fourth quarter. And also we have developed a revenue diversification strategy. As you know, that ZADNA is self-funding, and we have only one source of funding, which is funding from your domain name fees. So currently that is not enough to really keep us going, but we are going at the, as I said, but we've had to cut back. And with regards to the matter of the CEO, after the investigation, I think members are aware that there was an investigation that was instituted against the CEO, and the recommendations from the investigation was that we should have a disciplinary hearing, and that is what we did. And following the disciplinary hearing process, on 8th June, the CEO was dismissed, which was the recommendation of the chairperson. And as a board, having sat around and had a discussion and looked at the merits of the case and the report from the chairperson of the disciplinary committee, disciplinary process, we decided that we were aligned with what his decision was to summarily dismiss the CEO. He has, however, referred the matter to the CCMA, which we are in at the moment. There will be a sitting sometime in September for arbitration in that regard. And also, we are in the process of recruiting a new CEO, which we hope will happen as soon as possible. Without any further waste of time, I will hand over to the acting CEO, Advocate Seema, to take us through the presentation. Advocate, over to you. Oh, before you come in, Advocate, I forgot to congratulate the chairperson on her achievement. It slipped my mind. We also from ZADNA would like to congratulate you on your achievement. Thank you. You are muted, Advocate. We cannot hear you.
Did you bring her into the meeting, Chair?
Advocate, he is here. I can see his lips moving, but we can't hear him.
Advocate Siama, I suggest maybe you unmute, or maybe try to come back on because we can't hear you at all. Still nothing, Manyat.
We still can't hear you. Maybe you need to leave and come back.
While he's doing, yes, you're audible now. Please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and apologies for that. I'm using the mic of my colleague. Good morning, Chair, and Vice Minister, the DM, chairs of entities, and fellow colleagues. Can I request the presentation to be flighted, please?
Advocate, could you let us know who is flighting on your side?
Chair.
Yes. Do you require the sharing rights for yourself, Advocate Siama, or is there somebody else? Board Chair, can we get the CEO starting maybe with the financials, and then we'll take the advocate's narrative when he comes back on non-financial performance?
Oh, we can do that. Mr. Vuyo Sibulawa, can you take us through the finances whilst we wait for the CEO to come back on board? Advocate, who's flighting the presentation?
President, Vuyo to flag for me, Chair. I tried to flag it. There was a bit of a challenge. Apologies for that.
Good morning, Chair. Can I please request rights to share the presentation, or if someone can share the presentation from the whole site?
You can go ahead, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We go to slide 9.
Slide 9.
Thank you. Chair and members, the board chairperson has already provided the overview of the organization. So I will move on from where she ends. So in terms of our Q3 and Q4 finances, as the chair has mentioned, we continue to be a growing concern, and we continue to receive our revenue from the commercial registry operator classes in our operations. In terms of our human resource, we have had resignation in Q4, which was one of the permanent employees whom we've since have replaced through an extension of a contract from an internal resource. We also had the termination of 2 fixed term contracts under Q4. Next slide, please. In terms of our risk and audit matters, in Q3, we commenced the process of drafting a strategic risk register following the risk maturity improvement plan that we have been implementing. And the register was then finalized in Q4 of the previous financial year. In terms of our audits, we were able to address the findings that emanated from Q2 for Q3, as well as Q3 in Q4. Next slide, please. The CEO has already, and the board chairperson, apologies, has already touched on the issue of the now former CEO. But chairperson and members, I would like to also close off the matter of the CEO that came before, the one that has just been spoken to, where following the CCMA matter, the matter was appealed in the Labour court. However, it has since been struck off the law for non-compliance for submission of documents by such former CEO. Next slide, please. I will then turn to the performance of the organization in Q3 and Q4, and focusing specifically on these targets and targets that are out to the business. So in terms of the missed targets, we missed the target on the deployment of learning platforms for 700 schools, and this was mainly to two factors. When we had resource constraints, the organization to be able to then deploy the full 700 as was projected. Secondly, there was dependency in terms of having the verification of the platforms with the learning platform service provider, which we have since then rectified in this current financial year through a formal process of requesting that instead of the verifications being done on a case-by-case basis, we are then able to clump them together so that the verification is faster. We've also supplemented our skills through internship, where the current interns are assisting in terms of building the deployment platforms. And in terms of our other targets, to that, we've been able to then continue registration of non-commercial domains, particularly for schools, and that is within our control. We have also developed and finalized training manual for one of our flagship programs, which is the registry standard training, to be able to assist then the trainers to have manuals that they can refer to, as well as trainees beyond the training. And we've also started the process of implementing or assessing the impact from the use of such a resource. Next slide, please. In terms of our other missed target, it was around the signing of 2 partnership agreements, of which we managed to sign one in an initiative for promoting research and development. And the other target was not met, but however, we have undertaken an exercise to review our stakeholder partnerships that are in existence, just to give us a direction in terms of prioritizing initiatives that we can partner with in terms of our implementation. And the other critical issue is that we have continued to promote our stakeholder engagements through engagements with our members, that is the ZADNA members, as well as our partnership through the digital regulators and forum pricing of ZADNA and ICASA and FPB, as well as the information regulator. Next slide, please. So in terms of the compliance in the industry, we have then set up a process of doing a baseline report, particularly for the second level domain that is governed by CETA, drawing from the challenges that were faced in terms of registering names within that particular namespace. And we have since engaged CETA in terms of an improvement plan that would see the security within that particular space enhanced. In terms of our availability, that is the availability of the namespace, we have continued to achieve a 99.99 availability which basically means that we continue to be a secure namespace that the general public can trust on in terms of the technical capability. Next slide, please. Our other target related to assessing the compliance of commercial registries and registrars, which we continue to monitor annually. And there was a 70% compliance rate that was achieved for both commercial and non-commercial spaces. Next slide, please. This particular target was of interest because we wanted to close the gap in terms of providing the general public with information as to what steps they ought to take in reporting domain name abuse to us, the regulator, as well as our registry. We further did an extension by onboarding one of our key stakeholders, which is the Internet Service Providers Association, and then we then finalized the domain name abuse management process, which is available publicly to guide the public in terms of the reporting. Next slide, please. In terms of our core activity, we have seen in both quarters an uptake in terms of commercial domain name registrations, which has in essence resulted in an over 4 million domain names, which is the first since then the inception of the process and since the inception of the authority. We have further conducted training for entry point for individuals who would want to then enter the namespace and participate in. Next slide. We have also finalized the process of a project, having set out the project plan, where we intend to review the domain namespace secondary framework that guides the functioning of the industry, particularly setting out how the onboarding of registrars, which are the key stakeholders and the focal key points for customers, ought to then comply. And this was done with the review, with the last review having happened as far back as 2018. In this current financial year, we have then since started the consultations with the relevant stakeholders to see this process through by the end of the financial year. We continue to do research also that is relevant to the industry, with a particular focus having been made on the synergy in terms of AI adoption, as well as its relevance within the .za domain name space. Next slide, please. We have also conducted training for resellers, a bit different from the one I alluded to earlier, as this one provides opportunity for even unskilled participants to have a first-hand information around what the domain name space is about and what opportunities are present for them to start engaging. And this is also one of the targets that is tied to the manual I spoke about in terms of providing the adequate information for engagement. Next slide, please. Next slide. We have also undertaken a review of our compliance as an organization with the legislation, primarily the one that found us and data protection legislation, just to ensure that we are able then to comply in our operations with the legislative prescripts that are required by these pieces of legislation. Next slide, please. Lastly, we did do the revenue diversification in Q3, where we developed a draft which was then subsequently approved by the board in Q4, and we are currently initiating the initiatives that are documented in the revenue diversifications, just to supplement the revenue that we get from the commercial registry. With that, Chair members, I would like to hand over to the colleague from Finance to outline the financial performance for the two quarters. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to the Minister, the Deputy Minister of the platform, and all the other MPs, and also the different leaders of the different organizations joining us into this platform today. So our financial performance at ZADNA is looking as follows. We have a deficit in our revenue in both quarters, which is quarter three and quarter four. And then the primary reason, Chair, for the deficit in our revenue is mainly attributed to the number of domain registrations in the two quarters. So our revenue is entirely dependent on domain registrations. And also there was an introduction now that domain registrants can now register for a period of 5 years, a maximum of 5 years. So that also meant now that the income we're receiving in a particular quarter will have to be apportioned according to the renewal dates, which we term it as the renewal date. So we had to apportion that to both non-current liabilities and also current liabilities. And then when the renewal date comes, it will now be repurposed as the revenue for that particular year. So when it comes to our expenses, Chair, as the organization at ZADNA, we had implemented cost containment measures across the organizations. So that was to assist us in at least staying afloat, and also that meant now we delay in non-essential projects and also decreasing on some of our operational services. Thank you, Chair. We'll stand down for now.
Thank you. I'll hand it back over to you, Chair. We are done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you so much for the presentations from the acting CEO and the CFO. Let's take the final presentation, which is the NEMISA presentation. It is 10:42, so we'll finish with NEMISA just after 11 o'clock. I did indicate, members, that I may have to be out of the meeting for about an hour or so, but I will join as soon as I'm able to come back. NEMISA, I'm assuming, is led by the board chairperson, Mr. Arendorf. Are you in the meeting, or who's leading the delegation?
Chair, yes, it is me, and for some reason I need to change my settings to allow Zoom to have access to the meeting, but now it says that I will then quit the meeting if I reset my settings, Chair.
I can promise you, you are in the meeting, Mr. Arendorf. We can hear you
I'm
loud
saying
and
that I
clear.
need to reset my settings on my computer, and if I do so, Zoom says that I must leave the meeting before I can do so. So would it be okay for me to continue without me on the screen while I'm doing it? I will reset it later, Chair.
No problem. You may proceed, Mr. Arendorf.
Thanks so much, Chair. Chair, I want to agree with my colleagues and on behalf of NEMISA, its board and staff, congratulate you on the attainment of your master's degree. It's certainly true that hard work pays off. I also wish to confirm, as indicated by Minister Malatsi, that following the conclusion of an investigation into governance concerns within the management of NEMISA. Our internal auditors confirmed some concerns and recommended disciplinary action against the CEO and one individual in SEM. Unfortunately, we could not take such action against the CEO because his contract ended at the same time that the report was concluded. We are, however, seeking legal advice on taking the matter forward. Subsequently, or not because of it, unrelated though, the CFO has also resigned and the board accepted his resignation. The board, at its last meeting held on Thursday, made various interim proposals to the minister and sought his approval for the recruitment process for both positions, and we hope to hear from the ministry soon. Chair, but despite this period of leadership transition, I am delighted to confirm that following the presentation by the AGSA, NEMISA has for the 4th consecutive year achieved a clean audit. We remain grateful to the staff, and we also want to acknowledge the high standards set by the DCDT and also by this committee, for which we are eternally grateful. Chair, I will then ask us to move to slide 5. The one who manages the slides can immediately then go to slide 5.
Good day. So who from your side is managing the slides?
We thought that you would. Did you not get the presentation, ma'am?
No, I have the presentation, but it's usually someone from your side. I can go and get the presentation.
Okay, I'll ask Kefilwe then you can grant Kefilwe Tseleng the hosting rights, and then she would flight the presentation. Ms. Tseleng?
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm still waiting to be granted the rights.
Sure.
You can proceed, ma'am. You can proceed, ma'am.
Thank you.
Chair, while we're waiting for the slide, NEMISA has been performing optimally, maintaining a performance of 89% and 92% over the last 2 quarters. And while this represents good performance in quarter 3 and 4, there are areas of underperformance that require NEMISA to implement improved mechanisms to address it. The 2 missed areas are the 100% training of NEMISA staff. We missed it, Chair, by just 2%. And we were really hoping to do it because the identified skills development initiatives and training were very, very important to our staff. Then we also missed our target by, I think it is less than 10 on the training of unemployed people in technician skills, the cell phone repairs. And again, even in this instance, we have made some plans and progress working with the Deputy Minister, who has always been very helpful in our cause on how to address those 2 problems in particular. NEMISA has also signed a partnership with the DHET to deliver training at CET colleges, something that excites us. And then lastly, NEMISA's creative media showcase was successfully delivered in Q3, and also our first partnership roundtable that we have hosted. Chairperson, on the next slide, you would then see our overall performance in just a graph form. NEMISA has achieved 11 out of its 12 targets in Q3, and this translates to 92% for the quarter. And as I said, it is the digital entrepreneurship that had problems. And then in quarter 4, NEMISA has achieved 16 out of the 18 targets. and that was, as I said, the basic digital literacy program and then the employees training. This implies that the organization had an overall achievement of 89%. The detailed performance is then outlined on the following slides. And from slide 7, I will hand over to Ms. Nseleng, who is the senior person in NEMISA responsible for our performance chair.
Thank you, Chair, and greetings to the Chair, to our Honorable Minister, our Honorable Deputy Minister, Director General, members of the committee, and the different representatives of our entities. As the Chairperson has indicated, under Program 1, which focuses on building a digitally transformed and well organization, we had 4 planned targets for the financial year, and the underperformance related to a target where we planned to train 100% of the employees in the compulsory training that we had identified. And the Chairperson has mentioned there's only 1% out of the 59 staff complement could not attend to this training. HR is working on strengthening our monitoring mechanisms. However, we will also be putting, sort of reviewing the target going into the planning phase that is coming. We will be reviewing this target in terms of whether it is still correct to put it at 100%, taking from the lessons that we learned in this financial year. Then in terms of Program 2, which is all about formalizing stakeholders and stakeholders that assist us in terms of the delivery of our mandate, everything under this program was under control. All the programs and output indicators were achieved accordingly. In terms of Program 3, Chairperson, which focuses on the delivery of our skills program, for the financial year, we had different training programs that range from the creative media short skills. We also had creative media learnerships. We had training in basic digital literacy. We had training in entrepreneurship to support SMME development. We had training in emerging digital technologies. We also had training in technician programs. And I must say that the delivery of all the training programs was very progressive, except for the 2 programs. The first one is the basic digital literacy. This is where we had some shortfalls, and that mainly related to the partnership that we had with NSG. We had hoped that government employees would participate more in this training, but the uptake was quite slow. And we have learned that some of the government departments, they prefer to have this training face-to-face, while we actually planned it to be online. But this is something that we are working on in the new financial year to accommodate the different government departments. Then the second target that we had struggles with in Q3 then relates to digital entrepreneurship training. We had planned to train 3,000 beneficiaries, but unfortunately only 1,000 beneficiaries completed this training. And this was mainly because of we had planned to deliver this training through delivery partners, but there were delays in the SCM process, so we could not really see through this target in Q3. However, in Q4, the SCM process was completed. As we can see, the target was then 2,500 beneficiaries, and the achievement was 6,000 beneficiaries that completed, and that was mainly due to the partners that were then subsequently onboarded in Q4. Then in terms of the target that we also underperformed relates to technician programs. In Q4, we had planned to train 30 learners and only 16 learners were signed off to be competent. There were still some learners that could not complete their practicals as well as assessments, and that overlapped into the new financial year, so they could not be counted as competed at the end of the financial year. So those were the main targets that we struggled with under the financial year. Under Program 4, which focuses on research, which helps us in terms of the type of training that we do, we performed well. And as the chairperson indicated, we also had a roundtable, which then helps us in terms of the ecosystem that we operate in. Under Program 5 chairperson, we had 2 targets which we achieved, and this is where we produce our impact assessment that then helps us to assess where our beneficiaries are after they have completed this training. So we did produce a report accordingly in the year. Then in terms of the finances, I will just cover the finance part in the absence of our CFO and finance manager. Under quarter 3 chairperson, we reported a surplus, and under quarter 4, we reported a deficit. Then in terms of the balance sheet, the organization maintains a very healthy balance sheet as our key ratios remain very positive within the acceptable range above 1.1:1 ratio. Then in terms of the income statement, the organization also has adequate revenue exceeding the budget for the financial year. Then at the time of reporting, chairperson, we reported that we had no irregular expenditure for quarter 3 and quarter 4. We had no fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and then audit action plans were also on track. So with that being said, chairperson, we just want to say that while the organization reported a deficit in the 4th quarter, the overall performance of the organization reflects a surplus of just under 1 million. And this represents a very strong financial management as the spending of the organization, as the spending is closely matches the revenues as well as the budget that was put in place for the financial year. I'll stop here, chairperson. Thank you.
Chair, I have fixed my computer. There was also an issue on I think it is on the next slide of the finances, the financial performance. If you can just go up, one up, Kifilwe, the previous one. The previous one, ma'am. Yeah. Ma'am, you need to go up. It's after the income statement.
Okay, Chair. Got it.
One more up. Yeah, that's the one. You would also note that there is a significant variance, chairperson, that we just want to talk to, and that we will be. It is not from. Hold on just 1 second. The shift from a 7% shortfall in Q3 to 35% over recovery in Q3 was primarily due to timing differences. Certain program implementation activities were delayed in Q3 as a result of procurement and implementation timelines and were substantially completed in Q4. In accordance with the accounting treatment, the related conditional grant revenue was recognized only when the underlying activities were implemented. Accordingly, the Q4 position largely reflects the recognition of revenue that had been anticipated for earlier quarters, but was recognized in Q4 once the grant conditions were met, Chair. I thought that was an important one, but that concludes our presentation. Chairperson, thanks.
Good day, members. The chairperson noted that she would just step out for a few minutes or an hour. I don't know if it's okay.
Sorry about that, Hajira. My apologies. I was just managing my devices here. No, thank you so much, Chairperson of NEMISA. As Honorable Kusela Sangoni had indicated, she had to step off the call and she's asked me to manage the meeting. until she joins us again. Let us thank then all the entities for your presentations and appreciate you assisting the committee in terms of how you manage the time. Colleagues, we're now at the stage where we have the opportunity to engage the 4 presentations that we have received. I will now look to take your hands. I see Honorable Delisha. You will be first. Honorable Delisha, the platform is yours.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I raise my hand also so quick because I am about to enter into a doctor's room. But I'm fine, nothing to be concerned about. Chair, just it's one for me for ICASA. So ICASA has actually pronounced on what should happen with regards to the expiration of data, right? And the MNOs haven't really implemented that. I think for me, Chair, I just want to know what is ICASA doing to ensure that the MNOs implement what they said, that we come to an end of the expiration of data. Have they met with them? And also maybe they can take us as a committee into confidence, because I had read that MTN jointly with Vodacom, you know, have taken them to court because they don't want precisely what we're talking about, for data to not expire. So can they just, you know, maybe take us into confidence in terms of like what is happening in that regard? Because they did pronounce on this for a while now. That's it from me, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Delisha. Honorable members, I see Honorable Bodlani. Welcome, Honorable Bodlani.
Thank you so much, Chair. Chair, I think for me, it's mainly clarity seeking and comments. For our part, Chair, I think we should really manage the presentations and the reports by the department and the entities differently. In the past, we were able to get reports and presentations. So maybe if we go back to that practice where we actually get a report and a presentation, which would then be shorter as opposed to what we are seeing now, because now we are getting 35-page presentations, and we unfortunately have to rush colleagues in terms as they make the presentations. But if we get those in concurrence to each other, then it will mean that we read and the presentations are just for public consumption, and we can then speak to those. So I do appreciate that, Chairperson. Maybe let me also start with ICASA and where Honorable Delisha stopped. It would have been great for ICASA to really also take us on board in terms of that, the issue of the court case with MTN and Vodacom. What update is there? And Chairperson, it is known that the Portfolio Committee did meet with MTN last week. It was quite a fruitful engagement, at least for my part, where I thought we were able to really have honest conversations about the cost to communicate in South Africa and the work that MTN is doing. And we look forward to further engagement with similar entities. Chair, ICASA spoke about monitoring of illegal operations. Do they feel equipped to really do that? And what sort of interventions and what sort of programs are they doing to make sure that they empower themselves in terms of intercepting illegal operations? I remember in the past meeting, one of the past meetings, there was an issue about Starlink, for example, operating illegally in the country. Could they also give us examples of what sort of illegal operations are there and what interventions are they making to ensure that people operate legally within the country? Because that also speaks to a revenue stream for them. So just if they could just go into a bit more granular detail on that, I would appreciate that. Chair, I think it's interesting that ICASA has licensed the post office, especially considering where the post office is. What confidence is ICASA having just issued this license? And what support is ICASA going to be giving to the post office as a regulator? Because what we do not want is regulating for the sake of regulating. We equally do not want approving licenses for the sake of approving licenses. We do appreciate where we find ourselves as post office, and its regulation cannot just be a linear process where we do not take into consideration the status quo of the organization as it is, Chair. They also talk about going on a roadshow. How different is that to their stakeholder operations, which for me would have meant that there's a sense that ICASA is marketing themselves, and I say marketing themselves in inverted commas. And I'm not sure how they differentiate what they have now as stakeholders and who they would be targeting to say people must know about ICASA. If they could just maybe expand on that, I would appreciate that. I think we should welcome the reduction on irregular expenditure. It is commendable, and it is something that we really want to see a lot more of. I'm not sure if I'm understanding correctly that so far ICASA has spent only 71% of the budget it has on litigation. Is that the understanding? And what does that mean, considering that we always hear about how litigious the environment that ICASA operates in? Is it a good thing? Is it something to celebrate? If we could just get more on that. And ICASA spoke about the revenue collection of 2.17 billion. And they still brought in the issue of the spectrum sale, which I believed happened a few years ago. The 2.17 billion that was flighted today, what time period does it cover? Because it's one thing to celebrate your past victories, but you must put everything into context to say, we are having a third quarter report, for example, and if we are going to talk about 2.17 billion, what is the time frame thereof? So that there's just a context in terms of how we relate to the figure that we were presented with. Chairperson, on the Film and Publication Board, again, the issue of litigation costs keeps rearing its ugly head. And it's something that the department should really maybe perform a study of some sort or provide some sort of report in terms of why are we spending so much on legal fees as the department. And this is across all entities where we see big line items in terms of litigation. So that is just something I think we should really just flag for future engagements. Chair, I'm going to propose that as a portfolio committee, perhaps we have a meeting dedicated, and I'm tempted to say meeting, but I do note that the program of the portfolio committee is really full for us to really understand the issue of the FPB and the former CEO. Because what we are getting in this quarterly report and what we are getting on the narration of the board chairperson does not suffice in terms of what really is the core, especially if my sense is that there's people who are within the organization that are also now apparently going to face litigation of some sort by the former CE. So I'm not sure, Chairperson, if it would help us to just get a report or have a special dedicated meeting to speak to the situation of the former CEO and where the entity is and what it means for the governance of the operation. So I think I can leave that to the portfolio committee to decide. Chair, I really welcome the collaboration where FPB is telling us that they are renting offices from the SAPC. This is exactly what we are saying. We've got infrastructure that is sitting idle that can benefit entities within the department and other sister departments, and nothing stops us from doing what we are seeing now with SAPC being housing FPB and SAPC building. We know that there's issues of infrastructure and whatnot, but having this sort of income, I think, is going to assist. We should really encourage more of this. And as they look for their head office, I hope this is the consideration that they would be making in terms of using already existing government infrastructure. Chair, I really do worry about the future of ZADNA. And I have raised the issue of ZADNA reaching saturation at some point. And the presentation that we received this morning did not inspire confidence in terms of how sustainable ZADNA is. And unfortunately, I felt that with the presentations that we received from ZADNA, there was no solutions. There's no sense that the leadership at ZADNA has proposed solutions in terms of what can be done to make sure that ZADNA survives. With what we are hearing now, it's, for me, it's saying ZADNA is in high care. More interventions needs to be made to make sure that we don't talk about the ZADNA in the past. And maybe this is what the DCDT could also help us understand, what support is being given to ZADNA. And most importantly for me, I think when they talk about cutting activities, what does that mean for the workforce? And this is something I've raised before to say, it looks like the number of people that are at ZADNA does not necessarily speak to the operations of the entity. For me, I think it is overstaffed, and then the sooner we have a conversation about what financial constraints in relation to HR matters and remuneration of staff mean, the better. We don't want to wake up to ZADNA when we next see them and the entity is on its knees. So if the department could just speak to us in terms of what support they would then be providing to ZADNA for them to operate. Chair, lastly on NEMISA, Mr. Lionel spoke about the legal opinion that has been sought. I think it would be great for the portfolio committee to also have sight of that, because it will also help us to really understand what is happening at the organization. I must state, Chairperson, that while I appreciate that the former CEO has left the organization, we always talk about consequence management. And we have been clear and spoken in one voice as a portfolio committee to say whether the term of office has expired or whether the person resigns, the issue of consequence must still remain. What plans are there? With everything said and done, with the departure of the CEO, noting that his contract did come to an end, but what the allegations that he was facing, over and above him having left, what is the department going to do to make sure that, for example, and I'm not saying there is, if there is any element of criminality, there is consequence to that. Let me stop there, Chairperson, and really thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Honorable Bodlani, for your very detailed and probing questions, which is welcomed and appreciated as we carried our function of oversight as a committee. Let me then recognize Honorable Singh. Honorable Singh.
Thank you, Acting Chair. Chair, yes, and I do want to just agree with the Honorable Bodlani regarding the format of the meetings. To have 4 presentations and speak to questions on a whole lot of presentations in one go, I don't think is the most practical way of dealing with serious concerns. Chair, I'm going to take the opportunity of submitting some written questions, but there's a couple of comments that I'd like to make on some of the presentations. And I've consistently been concerned with reports coming through where we are actually measuring activity rather than impact. And that's always a serious concern. If we cannot measure impact, nothing's actually going to change in terms of what effect are we having on inclusive growth, job creation, and getting our underserved areas connected so that they can actually participate in our economy. So having said that, I will start by saying that I do welcome some of the entities, the clean audits, improvements in performance, because I've always said as well, whilst they report challenges and they deal with challenges, we must acknowledge where these entities are coming from and whether they are moving in the right direction, and where there are challenges, are we dealing with those challenges in terms of actions being taken and consequence management happening. So I do see that going in the right direction, and for that we must appreciate what is being done. But some of the broader questions that I have is that, are these entities measuring the right things? And that was my comment in saying that they seem to be measuring activities more than that they are measuring impact. So, for example, spectrum should deliver public benefit. Now, the presentation highlights broadband spectrum assignment as a key strategic intervention and notes that the process is underway with ring-fenced funding of 102 million. And spectrum is one of the country's most valuable public assets. But the presentation does not explain what measurable public benefits will flow from this assignment, Chair. The next concern for me is that the rapid deployment regulations. So what has been the practical impact of delaying the rapid deployment regulations on infrastructure investment, fiber and tower rollout, municipal approvals, and connectivity in underserved communities? And how will ICASA ensure that the revised deadlines will be achieved? Competition must also be measured in terms of the number of pro-competitive interventions as opposed to their actual impact. And would the authority commit to evaluating whether these interventions reduced prices, improved competition, and enabled new entrants and strengthened the consumer outcomes? I will submit further questions on ICASA in writing. The next entity, the FPB, same issue I have where they're measuring public, instead of measuring public protection, we are measuring activity once again. So the question is, are people and children experiencing safer protection online? And if that is not the case, and if that is not what we are actually measuring, then I think we have a bit of a problem. The FPP does acknowledge that limited human capacity and technology affected its ability to assess the CSAM cases. What is the current backlog? What additional capacity and technology are required? And when will the board be able to process these highly sensitive cases without delays that could affect criminal prosecutions? Chair, I'm going to just go past some of my other questions on that. I will do it in writing. Regarding NEMISA, the Honorable Budlani has covered me on the litigation issues, and that if monies can be recovered or need to be recovered, I should say, or if there are any criminal charges that could be formulated, then that must obviously be the case. But with NEMISA, I'm going to say this: training is not the end goal. The goal is improved employment, entrepreneurship, productivity, and economic participation. So whilst we see NEMISA achieving a lot of its targets, I don't see the impact of where these people are placed and what has happened to them subsequently. And I think if we don't measure that, we're not going to know whether the programs are the programs that should be actually run, because is that the type of skills that the industry requires to make the people who are trained more employable, or is there a mismatch? So that is a concern I have with that. With ZADNA, I think I have been mostly covered by the Honorable Budlani, because it's also, how does ZADNA measure the impact of its awareness and outreach programs? Specifically, how many first-time users, township and rural businesses, women-owned enterprises, example, are registered and actively using the .za domains? The second thing is that your schools we meant to deliver a national benefit. So what tangible outcomes resulted from ZADNA's participation in the international internet governance forums, and how have these engagements strengthened South Africa's digital sovereignty, cybersecurity, internet policy, or competitiveness? And as I was saying regarding the school's digital presence, what progress has ZADNA made in expanding the digital presence of South African schools and educational institutions? And does the authority have a long-term strategy to ensure that every public school has a secure and functional .za digital identity? Chair, I'm going to leave it there for now. I will submit the rest in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Singh. Hajra, can you just assist me to check if there are any other hands that I've missed?
Nothing on my side, Mr. Subrati.
Thank you, Hajra. Let me then just deposit my questions briefly, and maybe I'll also send in any additional questions in writing. Let me start then with ICASA. ICASA, all 4 Q3 non-achievements and 6 of the 7 Q4 non-achievements fall within the finance sub-program. And your performance there drops from 55.55 to 33%. Now, what is your recovery plan? This is an area that's concerning me. What is your recovery plan? And by when will the vacancies in the risk compliance unit be filled? My second question will be, the authority, you have underspent 188.4 million, which represents 25.5% of the budget, whilst operating a moratorium on the filling of posts, and you've cited capacity constraints as a reason for non-achievement. Now, how does the council reconcile these two positions? Cutting down the budget and citing capacity constraints. How do you reconcile these two positions? My next question is, of the 102 million that was ring-fenced for IMT spectrum licensing process, can we please get an indication of how much was spent and what was the balance surrendered, rolled over, or if it was retained with the approval of National Treasury? We note that the rapid deployment regulations under Chapter 4 of the ECA has been deferred to the second quarter of this financial year. That's the 26-27. Now, what is the timeline and the schedule to promulgation, and will publication for public comment precede the internal legal and the governance assurance processes that needs to be done? I think maybe those 2 invoice payment targets were met. Were in fact met, but forfeited because of inconsistencies within the APP. Now, when were these defects identified, and why were they not corrected by a tabled amendment during the financial year? And maybe my last question and concern is that you are holding a substantial amount of 647 million in cash, and you report a net assets of 642 million, which is substantially a very favorable position. But what is the reserve policy of the authority? And has National Treasury approved the retention of accumulated surpluses? Let me then move to ZADNA and indicate that ZADNA, you have alluded towards a funding challenge within the entity. And I think the last thing, and I think Honorable Bodlani would have alluded to this, the last thing I would want to see is that 99.99% uptime that we have being compromised as a result of lack of funding of this very important entity that ensures that the .co namespace continually occupies the internet space. So I would propose, chairperson of ZADNA, talk to us around what is this funding gap. And if not at this stage, but maybe then I would propose you take the committee into confidence in terms of what are your challenges and what is the funding need that you are seeking. Because the cost of that, a downtime of the namespace, has to be avoided and cannot be allowed to take place. Maybe then on .ZADNA, my question to you would be, we've got, I think, 1.4 million, 1.4 million, yes, of the namespace occupy the .co the namespace. What is the internal monitoring requirement of these websites with the namespace, with the .ZADNA namespace? How are you monitoring? Because as we encourage South Africans and we encourage our people to digitize and take up the space and unlock economic opportunities and learning opportunities and a whole host of opportunities, with it comes a concomitant responsibility of monitoring. And I'm specifically focusing on the Z.ZADNA namespace. What is the monitoring obligation, if any? Is there a lacuna? If not, and maybe cutting across, we'll then get the ICASA to maybe comment. If there's a lacuna, how then do we close that gap there? Because I am concerned around, we cannot wake up tomorrow and find that our .ZADNA namespaces are delinquent in terms of promoting misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, etc. There must be a level of monitoring of the .ZADNA. Maybe a pointed question towards the current CEO. .ZADNA, I'm on. It's suspended, and there's a disciplinary process underway following the dismissal of the former CEO. Now, I just want to get a sense of what is the cost to date, and when do you expect this process to conclude? Maybe the last question is your report of your presentation records that the entity operated under heightened reputational scrutiny and financial constraints, which have a direct material impact on your ability to conclude partnerships. And what does this refer to? And maybe how then is this managed? Moving on to the Film and Publications Board, let me, colleagues, at this juncture, and I'm not too sure if I've done it previously, but I've had the opportunity of calling upon the FPB to intervene in 2 instances of issuing takedown notices. And I must commend them and say well done to the Film and Publication Board. And these were during both instances were over the weekends, and in one was particularly long weekend. And the FPB was exceptionally responsive. Not only did they issue a takedown in the first instance within 5 hours, and in the next instance, I think within a day, they also provide clarity in terms of the fines for abusing the digital space, and they provided guidance, which was very well received by South Africans, and it gave us reassurance that the FPB is indeed agile and responsible. I think it'll be important for me to record and to appreciate their agility to respond to it. Thank you so much. In fact, I reached out to Chairperson, and then she would have initiated the whole process. Thank you so much to the team. Chair, one of the 4 child sex abuse and exploitation material cases was assessed in Q3, against a 90% target that is attributed to a lack of human and technology capacity. Now, how does this sit alongside a 7.19 million of personnel budget that was left unspent through vacancies deliberately not filled? Again, I'm seeing this recurring trend in this entity. On one end, we have an issue of insufficient human capital, but at the other end, we have a deliberate underutilization of budget to fill in vacancies. How do you reconcile that there? You've indicated that you cannot fund a system to automate the analysis of child sex abuse material, whilst you're holding 38.6 million in cash at year end. The question then is, what is a costed business case? What was requested from the department and National Treasury, and what was the response? Maybe my last question then would go towards the, I think I've left out NEMISA. So NEMISA, the question for you would be, your slide 17 of the presentation reports no fruitless and wasteful expenditure for Q3 and Q4, whilst on slide 25, you're reporting 358,000 for the 2026 FY, arising from, I think it was SARS penalties, a CCMA penalty, and travel costs. Now, what is correct? And maybe when will this record be corrected? And my next question is slide 21. You state that your total assets increased by 9.4 million or 43%. But the chart on the same slide shows an increase of 22.93 million to 28.97, being approximately 6 million. Please explain this anomaly, this discrepancy to us. Colleagues, let me then pause at this juncture. And if there's no further hands, maybe let me hand back to Minister Malatsi to lead the responses from the department and from the various entities. Minister Malatsi, if you're on the platform, can I hand back to you?
Thanks very much, Chair. Thanks very much. I think given that most of, if not all of these, went directly into the presentations by the entities, I think it's proper that we then follow the same sequence of presentation in the responses. But I think it's also important just to put a few updates on some of the questions that the members of the members of the committee raised, Chairperson, because post the conclusion of both Q3 and Q4, there would have been developments, particularly as it relates to the ICASA matters. I know 2 members asked on the rapid deployment regulations, so the regulator will provide an update with regards to that. And also the question that I think kicked off all of the questions from Honorable Qilishe in terms of the time frame with which those end user regulations take effect. The ICASA leadership will then clarify when the beginning date is, so that there is no misalignment in terms of when those are supposed to be kicking off and the expectation that it is already having to take place now. Chair, I'm not presuming your powers, but I see there is a hand, so I would defer to you.
Chairperson, I think the hand is from Mr. Shabaleng.
Sorry, Honorable Shabaleng. Honorable Shabaleng.
Thanks, Lawrence. I wanted to ask a question, but I would rather send in the question in a written format. So when you ask if there is any hand, because I'm in another session, I just felt, let me maybe make this noted that I would want to ask a few questions and send in. And before maybe I interjected the minister, I didn't hear a question about the case that was open. It was raised that, the MTN as well as Vodacom. But remember when we had our oversight last week, with MTN particularly. There was a complaint that MTN complained that it has actually been asking for meetings with ICASA, and unfortunately they have not been given the due indulgence. And this is what led to the two organizations agreeing to open up a criminal case. And we then responded to them, and the chair was there, that these things should not happen, where we should have institutions that are stakeholders to our environment of the, for instance, entities, have a problem where they feel they don't have access and they must go to courts, when they could have come to Parliament and raised the issue, and Parliament could have addressed the matter with entities and departments. So that's one of the questions I wanted to raise, to say, when the minister does an overview, he can please just touch on that. The other questions, Chair, I will raise them through a written format. Thank you so much, and my submission and apology on that for interrupting the minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chabaleng. Minister Malassi, I must apologize. I must apologize for that interruption. I know it was explained by Honorable Chabaleng. Let me apologize for that interruption. I did note also, Honorable Singh, your concern regarding that interruption, but let's allow Honorable Chabaleng the benefit. He indicated he's in a space where he couldn't raise his hand, because I did ask for any hands. And let me then hand back to the Minister. Honorable Chabaleng, we noted, I have received the interjection on the basis that you will submit your questions in writing, and I'm sure Secretariat will receive that. Honorable Minister, with that apology, let me hand back to you, sir.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thanks to Honorable Chabaleng for that question. No offense really taken, Chair. I thought there must have been an oversight in missing his hand, so I took it in that spirit. But it is common knowledge now that both the two MNOs filed their papers late last week with regards to their legal challenge on the end user regulations. On the specific question about whether they have, made efforts which were unsuccessful in getting any traction for a response from ICASA, I will leave that to ICASA to respond directly to that, Chair. And the Chair is here, will be able to do that. But I think the other thing to note, Chair, which is a question that yourself and Honorable Bodlani observed correctly so in terms of the risks with regards to ZADNA's sustainability or future. I think it's really a real risk that is facing us. And it imposes on us, a relook in terms of what our approach would be to this organization, because it's not just about, a funding question. I think too often we may reduce these things to a money problem when that is not the only aggravating, cause of the current challenges that the entity is facing, particularly even looking forward. And it makes that question that one of the members correctly observed in terms of one of the underperformance areas, again, is linked to the issue of the partnerships, and the anticipation with those partnerships is, when you look at them broadly, they should be informing a collective approach about revenue maximization and new areas of generating revenue. With that, Chair, we'll follow the sequence of the presentation, starting with ICASA, the FPB, ZADNA, NEMISA, and then if there's anything that the teams would have left, myself, the Deputy Minister, and the DG can come in right at the end again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Then let us hand over to the Chairperson of the authority, Chairperson of ICASA.
Thank you very much, Chair, and honorable members, Minister, and DM. Chair, thanks for the questions. What we'll do, I have asked my team so that we are structured in our response. I would have Moresi. She will take all the finance-related questions. We'll have Violet dealing with SAPO matters. And we will have Sia to deal with the illegal operations in terms of our interventions. And I will respond to the data expiry, including the issue of rapid deployment and the spectrum use. Perhaps just to start with the first question from Member Kalisha. In terms of the data expiry, Honorable Chair and members, you will know that The matter is sub judice. We are currently in court. Safe to mention that what the authority has done for the benefit of South Africans was to come up with an intervention which is meant to make sure that there's parity in services that are being offered to all South Africans. So I wouldn't want to dwell too much into the matter, but safe to mention that our intervention, we believe that it's for the benefit of South Africans when it comes to data use, consumption, and the rollover. So I won't dwell much into that. Again, just to confirm for record, we have met with all the MNOs. Obviously, I think as an authority, it's never our culture not to engage. So I can confirm on record, our team has met. Perhaps maybe it's the articulation of what was expected of those meetings, but leading to obviously litigation, Chair and honorable members, it's a matter that obviously as an authority we discourage, but it's within the rights of all our licensees if they want to seek any other means to resolve issues of conflict. But where we are currently, our doors are always open and welcome all licensees to engage. But I just thought, let me correct that for the record that our team has met. Then in relation to the rapid deployment, I will answer because Member Shing and yourself, Chair, the issue of rapid deployment, it's important just to know that, you know, there are other issues that are outside the authority's mandate when it comes to engaging, especially where you are dealing with municipalities. But I'm glad to inform you that the minister has made interventions to engage at a political level, to engage the ministries that are expected to engage with municipalities, because when you talk of rapid deployment, the intention is to find the best way of accelerating infrastructure rollout, whether it's by digging roads or areas within your pavements, or it's by engaging with the civil aviation if we are to deploy anything that is radio-based. I must say that, Chair, this is a collective engagement, not only as an authority, but in the past 2.5 weeks, we have engaged South Africans and all our licensees with an intention of finding a amicable program on how we can bring the main people here is the municipalities, because if you know, in terms of rapid deployment, it starts with the foundation, which is municipalities. For the fact that we've got different bylaws in this country, that still makes it very difficult to have a uniform approach whenever our licensees are applying for way leaves. But what we are going to do as an intervention, post our public hearing, we are as an authority going to engage all the 125 municipalities at the go, because we realize that as much as we can engage, Chair, it's more about our policies and regulations that we have with various municipalities. There are municipalities that are very amenable to request, they respond on time. In other jurisdictions, it's about our chiefs. I know in villages, I mean, I come from my village, my chief has never said no to anyone who wants to dig or to put infrastructure. So we're bringing contra lesser into our discussion so that this become a collective issue, because by 2030, in terms of our NDP, we should make sure that all South Africans have access to affordable services, and therefore issues of partnership with municipalities is going to be key. So we do have timelines. In terms of our Q2, we will then be engaging, as I've indicated, post our public hearings. With regards to the issue of spectrum, again, Honorable Member Shing, you're quite right. In terms of us as a regulator, one of our immediate challenge is to have tools that will enable all of us as South Africans to see to how much of what spectrum has been deployed is being utilized, and in terms of the impact, to what extent can we report back to South Africans and to everyone in the world to say, how is our spectrum used? Is it efficiently used? Is it effectively used? Now, in order to do that, you will have noticed in our next financial year, we'll be focusing on regulatory impact assessment. Now, this requires funding. I think, Chair and honorable members, in order for us to give you good comfort as an authority that we are actually measuring impact, it requires resources in terms of human resource skills and it requires funding. But let me not deliberate that, but that will be a program that the authority will then be engaging with yourselves. But just to give you some comfort, we are alert about these issues, and we have put in a program in our current financial year to address some of the issues that members have raised. Can I then request through you, Chair, if I could ask Moresi to respond to all the finance-related questions? And thank you very much for the opportunity. Moresi, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I will take the first question that related to the fees that were collected, that related to 2.1 billion. So, Chair, at this point in time, I can confirm that each and every amount that was collected, it related to the current financial year, which is 2025-2026. At the beginning of each and every year, we bill our licensees, and then we collect the amount each and every year. The question that follows is the I think it's the question that relates to the finance strategy, whereby it has been indicated that we have reduced in terms of the performance, meaning that the financial unit is not performing as intended, Chairperson. So yes, we do agree with that. We are not performing as intended. However, there is a plan that is in place with the main objective of ensuring that all of the targets that we're going to set, we are going to achieve. We can confirm that currently we don't have any vacant positions in the unit. However, what we're trying to focus on in the current financial year, and this plan has been in motion already, the automation of our ERP. So most of the processes within the finance are manual. However, we are trying to make sure that we are procuring the ERP that will support the unit and the entire organization. And the audit steering committee has been set to ensure that this plan is in motion, and we are now in the process of prioritizing our budget to ensure that the funds are enough, and should this terms of reference go on market, that they are success in terms of getting a service provider to build a ERP for us. There was also a question that had to do with 102 that related to the spectrum that was allocated. Okay, Chairperson, I think I will just maybe address the question that relates to our retention policy. If you remember, each and every year we are allocated funds, and then should there be a surplus, we write to the National Treasury, and the National Treasury will approve the excess funds that ICASA can use these funds. And also, in addition to those funds, we have funds that are earmarked for specific projects. And this time, we have additional funds which related to 102, which was marked for spectrum. Of this amount, 102, nothing has been spent to date. And we are planning on these funds. They will be used when the spectrum project starts, and so we are allowed to retain those funds. I'm not sure if I have answered everything. Colleagues, is there anything that I'm forgetting? So let me just hand over Cecilia if there's anything that I'm forgetting. Oh, okay. I forgot that indicator that we are struggling with. Chairperson, when it comes to the procurement of goods and services, we struggle to get submissions from women, youth, and people living with disabilities. One of our plans for this year is to go on a roadshow when the other units are out there in the country. We are planning to support them, and in these instances, we are planning to inform the community of the services that they can procure here at ICASA, so that they can submit and be allocated those RFQs or the tenders that they will be that we need the services from. I think I have covered everything. So can you take over? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Moresi. I could ask through you, Chair, again, just to take us through the issue of illegal operations and monitoring. Through you, Chair. Thank
you.
you.
Chair, I'm not sure if you come in or should come in.
Yes, you may switch off your cameras here.
All right, let me take it, Chair. Mine is to respond to Honorable Botani's question around monitoring of illegal operations. And an example was made of Starlink, and I think the main criteria of that question is whether do you have capacity. On our side, Honorable Botani, we are creating that capacity through collaborations that we've embarked on. We've since collaborated with the SSA. There's also customs and border controls that we are fostering bonds with, where we realize that considering our porous borders, we can't succeed without these institutions being our partners. And so we are yielding results. We're also leveraging off advanced technologies that are being used nowadays. And this is to say thank you to the SSA who have presented some of the latest technologies that we can have access to that will assist us in locating all these illegal operations, geolocating them, and making sure that wherever they are in South Africa, we're able to localize and send forces to deal with those specific cases. There's also then the issues of SIM boxes in another case. When we talk about, apologies, Chair, when we talk about illegal operations as well, there's the latest and sophisticated systems that are being utilized in the market that are able to locate these SIM boxes. And we can categorically go to the location and see where these players are. Those are some of the things that, Chair, we have put in place. So the capacity is not necessarily within ICASA alone. Collaborating with these state institutions, the service providers that have innovative technologies will ensure that the authority is on top of all these illegal operations that are in the country. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson. I think that addresses the issues. Just from my side, the last statement, Chair, in relation to the issue around impact, what we'll be doing, Chair, I think it's an area that I believe as an authority, when we're dealing with some research, we will extend an invitation to yourselves. I did say earlier on that we open up spectrum for SMMEs, primarily just to advance connectivity in the unconnected areas. And having gone now with our national frequency band plan, we will be then involved in what people say sandbox from a research point of view so that we have evidence on what we have. And that's how we're now going to be focusing on issues of impact. But let me take the opportunity to thank all the questions. If we have left others, we will be obviously available to respond in writing to some of the questions. But thank you very much, Chair and honorable members. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson of ICASA, and thank you to your team. Let me then welcome the Chairperson of FPB.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and the colleagues. For the sake of time, I will go through and respond to the questions myself. And if there's any further details that are required, then the members of the team can come through. Firstly, I think on the issue of the litigation costs, particularly as it relates to the matter of the former CEO, it is a concern that is shared and noted. And for us as the council, we are proposing that we continue to use the accountability structures that are in place to report in more detail in case, obviously, the schedule of the portfolio committee doesn't allow. We will be more than happy to come and report, but we are going to be giving a full report when we do the handover report as this council, through those platforms that we have with the department, whether it's the Chairperson's Forum or the governance meetings that we have with the Deputy Minister, and we will give more details there around this matter and why we are facing the kind of high legal costs that we are. And then the second issue, we note the concern on the measuring of activity versus impact. Once again, it is, I think, a concern that has been raised continuously by both the minister and the DM as it relates to the FPB, that we are not showcasing the impact of the work that we are doing. But it is a difficult thing for us to measure public protection. However, we have not just accepted that. We do conduct surveys that look into the impact of social media on vulnerable people, that is women and children. We do measure the impact of the advocacy work that we do on how we empower, particularly those women and children, in terms of themselves being safe online. But also another measure is the successes that is achieved in the courts, where the FPB is involved in analyzing that CSAM material, and they lead, they are witnesses, and in most of those cases we have achieved convictions as a result of FPB's contribution. But once again, perhaps it talks to that we could do more in showcasing exactly that contribution and the successes that are achieved as a result of FPB's work. On the issue, just to assure the members that we do not have any cases that are in a backlog. As much as in Q3 and 4 we were in the red, but we have absolutely made up all of those cases, so we do not have a backlog. But we are looking at a long-term solution. Honorable Subrathi, you mentioned the issue of the concern on the vacancies versus the challenge of human capacity. That, as much as that is the case, but we need to also have a long-term view as to what the solution needs to be. And technology is ultimately the long-term solution, because to also continue to add more humans to be the ones that are doing this very gruesome work, it is not a long-term solution. And hence, the suggestion in terms of working with CETA is one of those that we are looking at. But we have also costed the business case. And nonetheless, for the technology, we do have the numbers that we have presented to the department over the next 5 years, what it would mean. And we have prioritized that acquisition of certain technology for the 26-27 financial year. But it remains a moving target. I just need to say that if you are chasing criminals in the dark web, you are chasing a moving target. But still, we believe that through collaboration with law enforcement and collaboration with online platforms, we are going to be winning that war. And just on the point of vacancies, another factor for not filling those vacancies is we are in the middle of an OD process, because we have had challenges with employees before where we have simply been reactive in terms of simply appointing people into positions because we are reacting to an urgent need. And that has had an impact in terms of the HR policies being complied with and people's job descriptions being changed and structures being changed. And as an organization, we do not want to be found there. Hence, we are currently involved in a structured, proper OD process that will make sure that the entity is properly structured to fulfill its mandate. Thank you very much, Chair. I hope I have covered all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson of FPB, for your responses. Let us then move on to the Chairperson of ZADNA. The platform is yours.
Thank you, Chairperson. Maybe just to start with one of the comments that Honorable Bozani made, that we stand in a chance of not having a ZADNA, and I would want to respond to that by saying that as a country we cannot afford to not to have a ZADNA, an entity that does the work that ZADNA does, as it has to ensure that the ZA name is always available, resilient, robust at all times, given that if there was anything to go wrong, if that 99.9% was to be compromised in a way, that there would be dire consequences in the country. So we cannot afford not to have that. moving on to the issue that we don't seem to be doing anything regarding revenue. How we're going to get revenue. I think when in my opening, I did indicate that we have developed and are implementing a revenue diversification strategy that goes beyond just getting fees from domain names. I think we have also always communicated that we stand a risk of sustainability as ZADNA, given that we only have one source of funding, which are domain names. And at the point, I do agree with you, Pema Potlani, that we will reach a saturation point in terms of domain names. And the other thing is that ZADNA is a very lean structured entity. We have about 15 employees at ZADNA, so we're very thin. We are not overstaffed. All the people that are there are critical resources that we need to run the entity. And moving on to the issue of the CEO, and maybe just to clarify, Chairperson, that the current CEO has been dismissed, so we do not have a CEO. The outcomes of that, he was dismissed on the 8th of June this year. So we have a former CEO that was dismissed, and then the former CEO that was dismissed. And you asked about the cost implications of the litigation and the disciplinary process. Up to so far, we are at about approximately 2 million rands that we have spent in terms of the processes from investigation to the DC hearing to where we are now. So there would be more in terms of how much we're going to spend, as the matter has now been deferred to the CCMA. And the last one was in terms of obligation, the funding needs. Before I go to the monitoring obligations, I think we will get back to you on that with a business case for ZADNA to say what our needs are, so that we don't thumbsuck a figure at the moment and say this is where the gaps are, but just to identify them properly and just submit that to you. And I will leave the monitoring obligation to the CEO and the rest of the questions to the acting CEO to take us through you, Chair. Advocate Sema.
Just taking over, just in response to the issue of the awareness and relating also to our impact, especially in terms of domain name registrations and renewals. So we use a tab in terms of our awareness, primarily centered around education about the need for having a digital presence for individuals as well as businesses. So our TAD approach involves 4 segments, which is the very issue of awareness to establish the need for having a .za domain, and for end users to establish the interest in terms of exploring available domain name options, and the third one being the desire, which basically speaks to the preference of an end user in identifying a specific domain name extension to take on. And the last one is the actual action of proceeding to register the domain. So on a quarterly basis, we are able then to analyze the uptake in terms of domain names, and in that it involves also a better process in terms of assessing new domain name registrations, the renewals, the deletes, as well as re-registrations, because that is also what plays in our ecosystem. But also on a quarterly basis, we try to position our messaging so that it is direct to a particular interest within the namespace, which we observe through our quarterly assessments, both as an authority and the registry service provider. What we have also observed is that in maximizing the uptake within the space, its partnerships with entities such as the CIPC, where we continue to observe a growing interest of the participants, particularly small businesses, having an interest upon registration of a business to have the extension in terms of having a domain name. What we are currently doing is trying to smoothen that particular process so that once the interest is observed, we are able then to transfer the names that have been applied for in that system through a properly functioning registry system. In terms of our internet governance engagements, I think it's worth noting that the platform, mainly through the ZAIGF, is to provide multiple stakeholders, including government, private sector, academia, and avenue to actually speak about the emerging as well as current trends in terms of internet governance and matters. This has seen us in terms of regional and international participation, with us being in a position to produce country reports that set out South Africa's context in terms of its contribution. A case in point, we just recently also provided updates in terms of South Africa's position in terms of implementing the WSIS action lines and further contributed to the country report, which was presented by our sister entity, the CSIR, in terms of South Africa's position. So those are some of the interventions that we find it worthy that we still have that intervention and how it contributes to the broader discussion regionally and globally in terms of South Africa's position. And the last one, I think it was around the issue of the delivery schools program. While the intention for us is continue to continue to provide this particular offering, one of the challenges, aside from the funding, is getting the adequate buy-in across different provinces. So we have engaged provincially the Department of Education, where in some instances the indication has been that they already program ongoing in those particular spaces, but we have received interest in some where we've also piloted the program, particularly in the Free State. So with the assistance that we are able then to take in terms of human resource internally, as well as an expansion in funding that would enable us to also have on the ground focal persons, we believe that we'll be able to then fully implement the program. And thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if there are any questions I've left out.
Chairperson of the board, I would like to get clarity on the question I raised around monitoring. I know the question went around internet governance, but my question was very pointed towards the website monitoring on the .ZNS namespace. And I asked the question, is there a lacuna there? Can we get a clear answer and response to that, please? I didn't quite capture the responses. Maybe the sound also hasn't been very good of yours, Vuyo. So that was a question I asked around, is there an obligation to monitor the .ZADNA namespace websites? Is it being done or is there no obligation? And is there a lacuna?
Noted. Advocate, can you take that? Will you be able to take that?
Yes, Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. So in terms of our intervention, it's monitoring the use of domains. There could be a touch point in terms of websites, but our primary focus in terms of the mandate relates to administering the domain name in terms of the ECT Act. And primarily in terms of monitoring that particular space, we have proactive as well as reactive measures to put in place. What we have since done was to do an uptake of an AI platform that is able then to make an assessment on a daily basis in terms of potential breaches that come in through domains. Now, that particular system is able then to block those particular domain names even before they are reported. On the reactive aspect of it, we have a complaints process where there is suspicion in terms of potential domain name abuse, such instances are reported and are undertaken through an investigation process. And this is by extension also that enables us to do the takedowns in as far as domains are concerned. Where there is an issue relating to then content, we are able then to reach out to our sister organizations to say, this particular matter has been flagged in terms of the content it carries. But in terms of the domain names, particularly from an infrastructure perspective, that is where we play significantly, and we have systems to mitigate those particular incidences. Thank you, Chair.
Through you, Chair, maybe also to answer your question that you asked first, whether do we have an obligation to monitor the ZA namespace websites in the under ZA? We do not have the obligation to do so. I think, as Advocate has said, it's only the complaints process that we have. But maybe just to also say that there was supposed to be an entity called the Cyber Inspectorate, which was supposed to be the one to actually be monitoring the namespace in South Africa. So it wasn't an obligation for ZADNA. But what we do is just the takedown notice after we receive a complaint. I will stop here. Thank you, Chairperson. Back to you.
Thank you, Chairperson of ZADNA, and thank you to your team for your responses. Let us hand over now to Mr. Adendorf from NEMISA, the board chair, to lead the responses.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I think it is important that I highlight to this meeting that the investigation and its report revealed no criminality or criminal intent on the side of any of those involved. Not the former CEO or not the SEM manager. That is the one. And that is why it is a bit difficult to then pursue criminal charges. No finding was made, and it found that no one benefited financially or materially. And I think this is what I want to put on the record in this meeting. And now that the CEO, Mr. Ramitla, has left, the board is seeking legal advice on then how to deal with whatever else come from this report, Chairperson. So I know Ms. Botlane and Ms. Singh were concerned about it, and I thought that I put that on the table right away. A very important question. I always love Mrs. Singh's questions about impact. And because it is an important one, and we have at NEMISA improved our ability to measure our impact, to track progress amongst our beneficiaries. But I also think it is important to note, Chair, that NEMISA does the most with the little that it has. And perhaps it is a time to rethink how we manage or how the programs that we want to launch, because recent statistics for instance, just on AI remains a concern. Microsoft's Global AI Diffusion Q1 2026 Trends and Insights estimates, for example, Chairperson, that 23.1% of our working age population used an artificial intelligence product in the first quarter of 2026, placing us 46th amongst 147 measured economies and ahead of every African country in the study. Measure that then with what UCT has found in research on digital literacy, for example. They registered or they found that AI barely registered for 73% of South Africans. 37% had never heard of it, and 36% have heard of it but knew very little about it. Only 4% have learned about AI through formal education and 2% through workplace or professional training. South Africa's own AI maturity assessment scored education and workforce enablement at only 1.9 out of 5, noting that training is concentrated in a few institutions, only at postgraduate level or at niche certificates, and the rural areas are then excluded. So I am merely raising it to make members understand that we are receiving little, and the impact, as Ms. Singh has required, is felt across what we do. But when we look at a global scale on, for instance, AI, we need to rethink how we do things and what we do. Chair, I have learned to know you as someone who doesn't miss a comma or any digit, and always fascinating to listen to the questions on the finances that you ask. I want to assure you that during Q1 and Q2, there were no fruitless and wasteful expenditure. During Q3 and Q4, I mean, and that they all related to Q2 and Q1. And mostly, Chairperson, sadly so, it was a 220,000 Rand penalty from SARS that related to a dispute that we had with SARS. I also want to say on the variance of 9 million that you have spotted, that you highlighted on slide 21 and 26. It relates to new assets that NEMISA purchased, including technical equipment and security cameras to enable us to do our work. And Chairperson, I really appreciate the questions that members asked. It is an opportunity for us to show how we earn our clean audit. And I am really appreciative of the fact that members look beyond the balloons and the ribbons and really drill into these questions that give us an opportunity to respond to you and be held accountable by you. Thank you very, very much for this important opportunity, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson of NEMISA, and thank you to all the entities for assisting us in your responses. Maybe let me then allow the DG to respond. DG, let me go to you. We'll go to DM and then we'll close with the Minister. DG, are there any reflections that you wish to share with the committee from the department's point of view?
I'm trying to unmute. Thank you, Chair. Chair, apologies. Camera. So good afternoon to you, Chair. It's been a while. Good afternoon to the honourable members on the platform as well, and to the Minister DM and the esteemed delegations. Chair, there were a couple of questions, I think, related on the part from the department. I think the first relates to the issues of legal matters. And yes, they are rise within legal. I think it purely emanates on the challenges that we do face, by and large, from sector members in as far as then when we do execute our duties in as far as then compliance with the legislations or law. What we do is assessing these from time to time, and when need be, we do engage with then the relevant entity, as well as also then sector members. But I think it's only in a healthy democracy that you see these where one is able to challenge. The most recent one, as you would know, I think relates to both the ECA as well as also then the issue with regards to data expiry. These are challenges that have been ongoing, and we are hoping that we'll be able to resolve these, I think, in the best interest, both in terms of the citizens, as well as obviously ensuring the sector growth as well. The Honorable Bulani also asked a number of questions. Chair, with your permission, maybe just to switch off because I just want to check those comments or questions that were asked. Amongst those, pardon me, Chair, in as far as the issues of the performance and measuring the outcomes and in terms of the impact linked to the MTDP, we definitely do that to give assurance to all honorable members. I think primarily we are guided by in terms of the NDP. And then obviously the entities in their respective mandates, they help us to drive and pursue that. And currently now we are almost in the middle of the MTDP, so we are going to be doing then the assessment and midterm impact. We will make that available, and obviously I think going forward in both our APP and the entities APPs, you will then start now seeing the measures towards then the MTDP targets and the NDP. And then with regards to the issues of the sustainability, maybe just to start with SAPO, honorable members, I'm happy at least in terms of part of then the sustainability of SAPO. There was an announcement in the papers yesterday about their improved audit outcome. So they've got an unqualified, and I think owing to the current situation that SAPO has been in, it is quite a tremendous progress that they've made in that regard. I think it also is going to give investor confidence, honorable members, to show and illustrate issues of accountability, but also then to show the growth as well as positives, right, that the entity is doing. We will be presenting and tabling, obviously, the annual report along with audit outcomes at an appropriate time that to the portfolio committee. And then with regards to ZADNA as well, we've actually taken an approach to assess all our entities, looking at the issues that obviously challenging to them as well. So we do have regular engagements through the various DDGs who are then seeing their responsibilities, overseeing their responsibilities. But in the instances, for example, on ZADNA, so there are governance matters, as is indicated, and I think will be appearing before you just to present on those. But I think the most important thing is how do we make sure that we put in mitigation factors to avoid, therefore, the recurrence of that. And also how to assist the entity in terms of then its stability. Each one, I do believe they're most critical, and they do play a critical function in as far as then the digital economy ecosystem. With ZADNA, there are also discussions that are currently ongoing with the department to assist it from a financial perspective, and obviously seeing how we can offset some of those as well. Once we have finalized those, including obviously, I think the issues, we will then be able to provide the feedback to the portfolio committee as well. And then, Chair, I think those would have been the issues from our side, unless perhaps there could have been a matter that I might have missed. I just want to check with the DDGs on the platform if any would wish to add, Chair. I don't see hands on the platform, so I think we've covered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DG. Before I release you, I think we must underscore the point you made around the sustainability of ZADNA, and against the backdrop that we want to unlock the digital economy and make it available to all South Africans, and particularly those that have been historically disadvantaged. I think that matter must receive attention, and I'm comforted by hearing that the department is looking at that and seeing what are the blind spots and how then do we address the issues surrounding sustainability. For the 1.4 million issue, we need to ask ourselves a question that what is the ceiling in the South African context in terms of take-up of the .ZADNA namespace? And equally important, I'd like the department to then ask the question, what type of training then goes into these entrepreneurs that take up these websites to ensure that in a year or two, they don't return those websites and they haven't used it? I think that critical question must also be answered, because the more we can increase the appetite and the viability of these websites and unlock the economy, the digital economy, the more we can grow the economy. And the president has been extremely clear around that there. But thank you so much. I take some comfort in that there is this conversation and there is this awareness of the importance of the sustainability of ZADNA as a vehicle to drive economic growth and the digital economy in the country. Thank you so much. Let me then, before I go to the minister, allow DM, we haven't seen you for a while. Can we at least see your face and have some reflections from you on today's engagement? Deputy Minister Gungubele.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, Acting Chair. Good morning, Honorable Members, Minister.
It's afternoon now, DM.
Sorry. My apologies.
We're working hard.
Listen, I don't have much to say, Honorable Chair, except to say maybe when listening to Honorable Singh about the issues of wayleaf, because all what they speak to is the cost of investment with regard to connectivity in South Africa, so as to make sure that we remain a main attractive country in that regard. So when she speak about rapid, deployment, I just wanted to say there's an amendment which is very inclusive in that regard, which the minister has actually issued, which got adopted by various structures, which I think is in the system. When that amendment is implemented, it's going to go a long way to deal with the issues of reducing cost of investment in this space, sharing of infrastructure, leasing essential infrastructure, and also efficient use of the spectrum, modernizing the regulations in a manner that helps ICASA, for instance, to deal with issues of market inquiry and so on. There's a huge impact that amendment has once it's found its place, being signed by the president and so on. I thought it's important to say that. Secondly, I want to say the issue of impact is more about a result-based management, which I think in the department, it's a work in progress. I believe the day I deal on that is going to be a better day. I want to argue that government has a long time tend to deal with activities, and I want to agree with Honorable Singh, but we've not been dealing strongly with the issue of measuring results that translate in the object of change, and the object of change being the people whose life must change. And I think it's a work in progress, and the one is not disappointment with the direction the department is taking in that regard. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Comrade. Thank you, DM Gungubele, for your reflections. And we all align as a committee and as South Africans that the 7th administration is about serving South Africans with impact. Whatever we do must translate into a tangible improvement in their lives in some measure that we must impact. So I think that it's important that the theme continues to remind us how we must serve. Honorable Minister Malatsi, let me allow you then the final, your closing remarks on the session.
Thanks very much, Chair. I literally have nothing to add to the presentations in response. I think I've outlined where the areas of concern are in the prelude to the responses. I think we are looking forward, obviously, to the written submissions that some members of the committee are going to be submitting for areas of clarity, so that those can also then be clarified and dealt with. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Minister Malatsi, and thank you to your team and all the officials, chairpersons, board chairpersons, and all those of you who have assisted us in performing our responsibility of oversight. The committee will continue to be robust in our engagement. Thank you to honorable members for assisting us, for turning up, for asking the critical and uncomfortable questions. And I think today's meeting was extremely progressive. For me, one of the take-homes was around .ZADNA. I think we managed to probe a little, and I'm sure we will find way out. I want to appreciate Honorable Kosela Sangoni, who has been unable to join us. I want to leave the closing to her and to thank her.
Chairperson, we still have minutes. Thank you.
Oh, we still have minutes. Oh, thank you, Hajira, for interjecting. Let us then go to that item on the agenda, Hajira.
Almost.
We still got minutes.
Good day, members. It's a very short set of minutes. It's Friday, 26th June. And we deal with SABC, BBI, CETA, Centec on the 2025-2026 third and fourth quarter performance, as well as the consideration and adoption of the Netflix report, which we didn't have time for on that day and has moved it over to this term. So that is the item on the first page, members, with attendance. Second page, members, also attendance. Third page, attendance, opening and welcome of the chairperson, adoption of the minutes of the 9th of June, the opening remarks of the Minister DCDT, and then just to note that the representatives of SABC, BBI, CETA, and Centec made presentations on that day, and that the report containing observations and recommendations will be drafted for the committee's adoption. There is a note to say that the Netflix visit will stand over, as there was not enough time during the meeting, and the observations and recommendations on the report is being drafted at the moment. Thank you, Chairperson. That's the minute.
Is that the only minute we need to adopt this afternoon?
That's correct.
Thank you. Colleagues, can we have, are there any changes to the minutes? Before I seek your help to get the minutes adopted, please. No changes. Can I get a proposal to adopt the minutes? A mover to adopt the minutes, please, colleagues. Honorable Bodlani.
Good afternoon, Chair. I move for the adoption of the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Bodlani. A seconder for the adoption of the minutes, please. Say Honorable Chabaleng is with us. Honorable Choke Odonis is with us. Najira, we'll have to carry over that minutes. There's no seconder for the minutes. Colleagues, thank you for this engagement. We have finished unusually earlier than we would normally finish. Mine is really to wish all our ladies, our women, a happy Women's Month, and August 9th is this weekend. So I wish you all a wonderful Women's Day. Women are an important and integral part of our society. They are indeed nation builders, community builders, and we salute your contribution towards building a prosperous and a successful South Africa. And let us then adjourn this meeting. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and members.
Thank you, guys.